Welcome everyone to the Koochiching County Board of Commissioners regular meeting for Tuesday, August 20th, 2024. Could you please help me open with the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks everyone. First item of under county business is to approve the proposed agenda with additions and/or deletions. We have neither today, so it is as presented.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Hull.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Next up, item 2 is to approve minutes from the August 6th, 2024 regular meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner McIntyre. Any discussion on the minutes? Everything looks good. Seeing no discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Next up is financial business. Item 3. Item A is to approve courthouse claims. Item B is to approve highway claims. I would accept the motion as well.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner McIntyre.
I'd second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach. Any discussion on the claims? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Next up is to approve a safe and secure grant application and board chair letter of support. This is kind of went through the system already. Maybe Adam can explain it a little bit. This is to apply for a grant, matching state grant, around $29,300 this year. I have it right in front of me.
Yep.
And that'll be combined to do some door fob work around the building and the actual courthouse building, and then there's a window being replaced potentially too up there on the court administration. So that's what some of the funding will be used for. Anything?
No, the Minnesota judicial system usually puts out a grant every couple of years. The amount varies. I think the total grant dollars is $500,000 this year, which is down from years past, but it's a 50-50 matching grant, and it goes towards any type of courthouse safety and security type projects that need to be done. And so yeah, like you said, we're looking at having more security on our front and back doors of the courthouse, the fobs and timer systems, so we can lock the building down all at once if we need to in an emergency. It's not reliant on humans to manually lock and unlock it at a certain time. Looking at fobs for the probation offices on second floor, a fob on the back stairwell here on second floor as they come up to courts, and then the court admin window is just a sliding window right now, and so a more secure window with bullet resistant glass and more of a pass-through window for security at that place as well. So we got some bids, and yeah, our match would be the $29,612.50, and then looking for the grant in that amount. So.
And if awarded, would that be out of contingency for the?
It'd be a 25 project, so
Okay.
Dean has it in his 25 budget.
Oh,
I think
right.
they announced the awardees in December, and the grant is due here by next Monday.
So we'll just add it to this year's, or for next year's budget. And
Correct.
if it's not there, not awarded, then we can just go with that.
Correct.
Okay. Wishes of the board.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Hull.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach. Thank you, Administrator Bill, for the information. Any discussion? And this is just one quick question, this will be kind of accomplished next year, actually?
The goal is, I think, upon award of the grant, Dean will reach out to American Legal Securities to procure the supplies and equipment, and then work towards a installation date. And then the courthouse window, we're looking at maybe timing that with the jury room remodel with ICS, and gain some economies of scale of having Bradbury on site to do that. That might be a little later in the year, August, September-ish, based on their timeline for that part of the project.
Sounds good. Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carried. Next up is to approve request to terminate court-appointed attorney agreement and go out for RFP to fill vacancy. This was one of two companies that we had here under the wing of the public defender, and then this year is just they're going to mutually agree to terminate the contract or something.
Yeah, so we had approved earlier this year a 2-attorney rotating basis for court-appointed attorneys, and one of them can no longer meet the in-person expectations of being here, present for court. Basically didn't understand the commitment of having to be in person, so she has requested to terminate the agreement, so we're just asking the board to mutually agree to that, and then to approve to go out for request for proposals for a new court-appointed attorney.
Nothing's changed with another contract.
Contract's the same.
Okay.
I've modified the RFP to be a little bit more clear on the in-person expectations. Not that it wasn't communicated before, but this will be right in the RFP.
Okay.
And we'll probably leave this open for about a month, 4 or 5 weeks, and then see what proposals we have and bring those back to board for consideration.
Sounds good. Well, with that, I'll hand it over to the board.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner McIntyre. Any discussion?
At the, I wasn't real clear on it, but the Hand Club meeting, the guy from, the commissioner from Pennington, Thief River, was talking about they're up the creek on things like that. I think pretty soon they will be down to 1 because in that office because of cost. They're going to go to a pool. Are these from a pool? No, these are individuals.
These are individual, independent attorneys.
They were running into issues with expectations of salary, which was well into 6 figures. They wanted to be equal with, so they, I didn't have time to question them all about it, but I thought this was kind of scary. Because knowing that we had 2 of them under contract for less than 90,000, wasn't it, something like that? And they were talking 6-figure salaries for one, and they got no takers. Now that must have been maybe a county attorney in the office.
Might be. Yeah.
But the thing that caught my ear was they wanted to be paid the same as a court appointed or something.
No, the unique.
So I'm thinking that we either got a really good deal or we got a pretty good kick coming.
Well, besides our unique or remote location where we live, the state standard guidelines for court-appointed attorneys to be in person or not, most of it's remote. That's
Right.
the base level for this, but our judge feels strongly that in-person representation is better, and so that's his expectation. So a lot of these attorneys represent a dozen different counties and can do that right from their home office, and they can just pop into a dozen different counties a day and represent. So I think it's going to be hard to attract someone that's doing that to have to travel here a few times a month to represent in person. So that's kind of our uphill battle right now
it might have been a misunderstanding on my part, but it was just a thought to keep our eyes and ears open.
Yeah.
You know, what goes around comes around.
Yep.
Any further discussion? We have a first and a second. For no other discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Next up is consider support for Forest Cemetery. We discussed, and as you know, they had some vandalism there to the tune of $11,000 according to estimates. And they're looking for a little, I missed the meeting here, but you guys were here for when they came to discuss what they were looking for and how they have to proceed. I know there were some ideas given to them at that time. And in that discussion, in our next committee of the whole, I was mistaken. I kind of half mistaken with the donations or any types of funding being able to go to them. It was more of a donation that was not allowed, and that was due to a computer from many years ago. They would try to give them a computer, and underneath this 1203C13 or whatever it is, that is not allowed, as it states in the statute here. But we are allowed to help if we see fit to fund or help fund. So I think their request this time was a one-time fund, it sounded like. I know the city of International Falls does give them, I think, $5,000 a year. And I don't, what they do that with that, administrative fees, things like that. But just bringing this back here to get some closure for them too, to see whether there's any interest in helping this out a little bit, and what amount, if any. So, but open for discussion on that. And it is outside of the city limits as well as many of the cemeteries are, honestly, in our county. So I think Northville might be in the city limits down there, but.
Well, I believe we had mentioned at that time they were going to go back to see what they could do for finding, if they could find the families of some of these. I don't know if they've actually found all the families for the people. There's, I'm sure, a pile of them that have no families left, or them are the ones I feel bad for to have to fix up. But personal family, if they're here, they can maybe get it lifted themselves. But I don't know if they've caught the person yet or not. I heard one time they have, but I haven't heard anything else about it, so I'm sort of thinking that was probably inaccurate information.
I think you're right. I don't think there's anybody.
Have they had any fundraising success?
I haven't had any updates since the last discussion.
I guess my thought would be, is the work been done? Wonder.
I don't think so.
It's kind of a gray area, because if only professional licensed people can do that, but yet a personal family owns the stone, how could they not? I mean, that would be my question, I guess, and maybe I should have invited them, but I didn't. But that would be a question I would have, is if this stone is owned by, say, the families that are still available and around, would that be possible to do them? Could we lift those ones up, under some guidance and things like this here, with not having to do a professional fee with all these? That would be the question I would have, is if they're around and they are owner of that, well, we should be able to do that, shouldn't we? I mean, if it's yours, you can fix it, I would think. But I guess that's one of the questions I have that I don't understand, and I don't know, and I apologize for not inviting anybody here to do that.
I don't mean any disrespect to the cemetery, because I think it was a tragic thing, but I think there's an awful lot of cemeteries around, and this would probably fall under the category of maintenance, roughly. Cemeteries are community things, and rightfully so. I don't mean any disrespect. There's been enough disrespect shown.
Yeah.
I would be interested in seeing, after the project is done, if there's a shortfall. Then
Do fundraising first and get them stood up and then go from there.
veterans, we could go to the BSO, you know, right? Something like that, if there's veteran cemeteries and things like that. But I'm kind of with Jason a little bit, you know, these are private plots, you buy the plot. I would have thought there'd have been some vandalism coverage someplace, but apparently individually owned is something it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate, very, just wanted to get it back out there, just to kind of give them some closure to move forward and just a kind of a direction for them, so. I know we had some discussion at the committee of the whole. You know, I'm for funding them, you know, to a certain amount too, but I can agree too that if they have some fundraising and see where they land after that, that would be fine. But like you say, it's, yeah, and there's some questions out there too that we have, I think that could be answered too. So maybe get a list of questions together to ask them and maybe have further discussion later on or kind of see how it goes for them there. And, yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at too. If there's a shortfall, maybe we can help out, but maybe not be the first ones in there. And, you know, it's, you know, I don't know where they actually generate the money, but in time, pretty soon, no one's going to be there helping out. And if there's, you know, I mean, it's tragic, it's a vandalism thing, but maybe helping them out to some degree, but seeing where they can go first.
Great. Well, for we can table this for further discussion.
Table for,
Yeah, I think we'll just kind of put this on hold and bring it back for discussion maybe in a month or two. See where they're at. Maybe reach out to the board member there or the chair of the committee and just kind of let them know what's going on and maybe we can have some questions that we have for them too.
table for future discussion after
Yeah, we can.
fundraising and
Yeah. I think some insurance questions. that we
family
can-
contact.
Yep.
Maybe they can put it in the paper for donations and put a big article that it got vandalized and here's the shortfalls and maybe, you know, they can get money that way besides the donations, but if they get it in the paper.
Great. Do we want a motion to table? I accept a motion to table the sports for further discussion when appropriate. Thank you, Commissioner Erickson.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hell. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Next up is consider reappointment of assessor for a 4-year term. This just popped up. This is a timeline deal here. And we have the assessor here. Hi, Len, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
And this is we've kind of really never went this route before because we just kind of, it's been automatic, I think, in the past. hasn't it?
Well, I have to take an oath of office, somebody's
Yes.
read that's got to be signed.
Yep, yep.
The Department of Revenue will need a copy of this, and they also need a copy of the minutes. And then when they get that, they have to decide if they want to keep me too.
Yeah, the Department of Revenue goes to, right, and the Commissioner of Revenue kind of makes the final decision. Okay. Yeah.
They
It's a
have to
4-year
approve-
cycle.
They got to approve you too?
Yeah, it's kind of like I got really two bosses, you know, you guys and the Department of Revenue. So.
What are their requirements?
Oh, they look at your, like, for instance, if there would be any criminal stuff involved from the last 4 years and all that kind of stuff. So normally it's never an issue. It never has been in the past, but
Yeah, some accreditation.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's the question, I guess, you know, licensing or whatever, is there a license that you gotta have?
Yes, I have to have a SAMA license, which is, I've had that for quite a long time. To be a county assessor, you gotta have a SAMA license. And that's just one of their requirements, and continuing education every 4 years. So,
Indoctrination.
yeah. That's gotten better actually, because there's a lot of stuff they're doing remote now. I mean, my God, they'd have a deal, you'd drive down to St. Cloud for 3 hours of education and stay overnight, because they'd start the class at 8 o'clock in the morning, and, you know, so they're getting better at it, you know, so.
And what's your willingness here to continue?
Pardon?
Your willingness to continue and?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't know.
Think
You know, I
or
gotta
hope.
keep putting up with you guys. You're kind of wears on you a little bit. I will say, and be honest with you, I appreciate you guys, and I say that because I have 2 bosses. You guys can actually terminate me at any time. That has happened in some counties when assessors made a decision and the board totally disagreed with it and just flat out, you know, let them go. And at the same time, the Department of Revenue is my boss, and they have their license. And I've always appreciated the fact that so far I haven't got caught in between, where, you know, there's been a fight between the board and, you know, the Department of Revenue. And I've always appreciated you guys. You guys always have good input, especially at the Board of Equalization. That's where we probably, you know, get together the most to get your input on stuff like that. So it's important because we're all here, we're kind of in the same boat. We all want to accomplish the same things. And it's good when I have the major decisions, whether it be like a tax court case or something like that, you guys get involved and help make the decisions on where we go with that. So you're very important in that, and I appreciate that. I will not be coming to you 4 years from now.
Well, the valuation's calmed down a little bit, so the calls maybe slowed down, but I mean, I know that's a concern for lots of folks.
The only reason it's really slowed down is you do this job and you look at stuff and you say, why are we doing it this way? And in the office, it's kind of been, well, that's the way we've always done it. And so we just keep doing it. Nobody really looked into it. Should we be doing it this way? Is there a better way of doing it? So what we changed really is when we needed to raise values, we'd raise them, and then we'd take that raise off. And then next year we decide what we need again. And it was just it was a mess. So now when we do a raise, we leave it on there, okay? And so like on the lake or whatever it is, if we put a 30, 40, 50, 60% increase on there, it stays on. So when the sales come through, the next year, if at all, you're maybe looking at a 5 or 10% increase, not these big jumps all the time. And, you know, that has really helped us. And, but at the same time, my gosh, these sales keep coming through, and they just, we can't, there's some areas we can't keep up. It's just amazing what property is selling for, you know.
The cost of building is very expensive.
Is that part of it too?
That's why the property values go up, because
Yeah.
to build a new one would be very expensive.
You know, when I started a long time ago, maybe a high place on the lake was a couple $100,000. Now it's like 800,000-900,000 or $1 million. So, you know.
Is there one area you're seeing it more than others?
It comes in spurts. You know, it started on the lake, to be honest with you, when you guys were involved, and wow, we were taking 60, 70%, 75% increases out there. 2 years ago, Little Fork, 60%. Now Little Fork's good. And going ahead, Little Fork's good. What's going to be in trouble this year is Rainier. Rainier's going to be in trouble, but Rainier, we haven't done anything for a long, long time, see? So it's like all of a sudden Little Fork, they're buying property in Little Fork, and all of a sudden they're buying property in Rainier. It kind of moves around a little bit, you know. So we'll see. You know, we got October 1st, and you know, we're almost halfway through the next sales ratio study already. You know, that's scary. I mean, we hardly get through the Board of Equalization, already we're trying to figure out what we're gonna do again. You know, so. But anyway, I think our office technology has really changed. Wow, I mean, we have, you know, technology at our fingertips. We can run sales ratio studies and all that kind of stuff that we couldn't do before. This afternoon at 12 o'clock, we'll be coming to you to talk about a mobile program and everything. That's going to help immensely. This stuff just keeps getting better and better. So, any questions?
Well, thank you, Glenn, for all the work you've done and
We'll have more.
keeping things on track and through the thick and the thin. So, but wishes of the board here were. And this is, I think, this is at the end of this year, right? 31st.
Right. It turns over January 1st.
January 1st. Right.
And the reason it comes up now is by statute, the board, should they decide they're not gonna continue me, my contract, you have to notify me by October 1st. That's why it comes up now. And if you would not do that, and you want to get rid of me and you don't, you know, tell me before October 1st, then you're stuck with me. But that's why it's all now. It seems like it's a long time ahead of when it is. But, you know, if you've got issues or whatever, you can choose to go that route, but you have to let me know. So.
Yeah, time goes by fast though. From October to December in just a blink of an eye. So.
Yeah, I can't believe it. We're almost in September already.
Yep.
I'm not sure who administers the oath. Do I just read it, or how's that work?
Len, we were gonna do that at first of the year with the other oaths, or county board, and
Okay.
we just thought it made sense that that's when your new term starts, that when the new oath should come.
Okay, so it's not official until then? Is that what you're saying?
Well, if the board approves,
Right,
it's
okay.
official, but the oath is just you oathing into the
Okay,
next.
but I
term.
can't send this into the Department of Revenue till then, because this, I have to,
Oh, you have to send a new oath in before?
this has to be signed and notarized.
When's that one due?
Well, it doesn't have a due date on
Oh.
it.
Well, we can talk about that. If we need to do it early, we can do it next meeting.
Oh, sure.
I don't have anybody to do the oath today, but I thought it made sense to do it at the first of the year with the other reappointments or.
Yeah, we can do it earlier if you need to.
Yeah.
So find out
No, I have no problem.
before next meeting, we can, you know, do that. So
Sounds good.
But we're looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion for a reappointment for the next 4 years.
I'll second it.
Motion by Commissioner Howell, seconded by Commissioner Roach. Any further discussion?
Department of Revenue could reject it, so.
Well, they would have to see something like a felony or something stupid, like,
Red flag.
But I
Right,
mean,
yes.
They would need to see that before the first of the year, though, probably.
yeah,
Right?
I mean, unless there's
Yeah.
something, there's stupid stuff, like you can't be behind in your taxes and all that kind of stuff. Right now, they would be the last people to want me to go.
Well, I mean, you guys can figure out the timing of when that oath needs to be signed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with it, no, I really don't. so.
That was the only question.
Yeah.
All right, so we have first and a second. Any further discussion? Well, thank you, Len.
Thank you.
Here
Thanks,
next,
Len.
I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. There we go. Next up is Public Health and Human Service.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
The first item is approve warrant voids.
Yep.
Let me just get one here.
I have Ms. Besh with me today as well because we have some public health stuff on the agenda and wanted her here to speak to that. So,
Thank you. Welcome.
Welcome.
And we're just gonna look at the voids. There's one approve a void of warrant in the amount of $611, and the second one is a void of $200.
yep. The one was a social welfare account one that insurance actually covered it, so it doesn't need to come out of their account.
Okay.
The other one was the business, their computer system couldn't accept a check without somebody providing a ID along with it, and the checks say your name and Joan's name on there. So their system wouldn't allow them to accept it, so we had to do it through credit card. So that's why that was voided.
All right. Chair would accept to approve both voids.
I'll make the motion.
Go ahead, a second.
Thank you, Commissioner McIntyre. Thank you, Commissioner Hell. Any discussion on the voids? Thanks for the explanation. Hearing no further discussion on public question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, opposed, and motion carries. Next up, we have a letter approved severance of shelter, emergency shelter activities, and it's just related to some of the discussion that we talked about with just a letter of what they're doing there and all
Yeah.
the services they provide.
Yep, I see Ariana is online here. She could speak to it a little more as well, but this is, it's a requirement for their emergency solution grants from HUD. That was kind of a unknown requirement from DHS as well. So DHS reached out to Ariana, said we need to get this on, just saying that the county approves that they're doing these activities in the county. There's no cost associated to the county with it or anything. It's just a form that needs to be signed by the county saying that they approve the activities. Ariana supplied their work plan, that what they use these funds for. She is online, so she can explain it a little more as well if you guys have additional questions.
Hi, Ariana. Thanks for being here today. Sorry I missed your email there. I did go back and look, and I don't know if it didn't go through or what, but I did see that it was sent in time and everything, so I apologize for the delay here. So, but you want to explain a little bit, if you like?
I wonder if she's having microphone issues.
I can't hear you, Ariana. Can you hear us? Can anyone online hear us? Anyone? We cannot hear anyone online. I apologize for that. Should have checked earlier. Let's see if I can get online here. Find the link here. I'll try to get on here. Well, I think if you want to go ahead and just, this is kind of maybe explain some of the services that we're using from there.
Yeah, their activities that they use is for their emergency shelter, their 30 and 90 day shelter. That's what this grant helps fund. Support services. That they're halfway through the biennial cycle on it, so they already received this funding. This is something they're already a year through the 2-year grant, and then this came out that they need to have this in place as well. They've had this grant for a decade, so this is something that just kind of came up from DHS that they've been missing. So it covers the operation of their Blue Haven shelter, which is 5 units for families of domestic violence. Also for their Northern Lights shelter, which is 6 single units for adults and couples, low barrier units. It started July 1st, 2023 and runs through June 30th of 2025. This is the Emergency Solution Grant from HUD, and it's they've been receiving it for quite a long time. So.
It's like a biennial grant.
Yeah, every 2 years. So it's just a requirement of the grant that nobody knew about until recently, so including DHS, because of the DHS, the state is funded by HUD through this grant, and then they send this out to different organizations such as Servants of Shelter through the grant application process, and it's a requirement that they have this authorization from the local authority to do these services in their area.
Right here, any luck for, no? I'm just trying to sign on here so I can maybe type something in the chat, but evidently they can hear us, but we cannot hear them. But we'll work on that as time goes on here, so thanks for helping explain that. And it's just so this is just kind of a certificate that they're receiving these funds, so I would accept the motion on behalf of that.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner McIntyre.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hi, Ariana. Or, no, that was Janelle.
Yes, I was actually going to just go down there. Yeah.
Hi, can you mute yourself, Janelle? There we go. Great. Yeah, I think I got the volume off. Sorry about that. Apologize. That was not even me.
So you can hear it on your computer?
I'm echoey. Something's
Something's wrong with the room.
Yeah. It's echoey. I could do them. I actually heard someone on here through this here setup, so I think it's this system here that's not working. However, it gets echoey like it did there before, so there's a similar issue. But anyway, so we'll move forward with that. We had a first and a second, and we approved that. So we'll move on to the approval of amendment to the 2024 ADOA volunteer driver purchase agreement.
Yeah, this is for our volunteer drivers for our clients that need transportation, for medical appointments, for visits for children that are in treatment at places, things like that. There was no reimbursement for unloaded miles, and there was difficulty getting drivers because unloaded, if you have a one-way trip, somebody has to drive all the way down to Duluth to pick up a child, bring the child back for a visit, bring them back down to Duluth. There's a trip down and back there that there isn't the miles were unloaded, so there was no reimbursement for those unloaded miles. So it was making it difficult for them to find drivers and B, make it viable. So this was just adding an amendment to use the current IRS rate for the unloaded miles. On the loaded miles, it's above the, what was it, 50 cents above the current IRS rate.
Yeah.
So this is just compensating for those unloaded miles, and we do have room in our budget for it. We're not doing as much transportation, so it's important to have those drivers so we can get those visits and everything done. And same thing with medical transportation as well for different ones. If somebody is going for surgery or going into labor, they're going to be in the hospital for a few days. There's the unloaded miles that the driver would have to deal with. So.
Okay. Thank you. Wishes of the board?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Howell. And thanks to the drivers.
Yeah.
And we need them, we appreciate them, so it's, like you say, it is important. So a good idea you're raising it up. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. And next up is consider a renewal of the Hasburg and Foster Home Housing Support Agreement.
Yep, this is one of those where I came, better than a month ago, and I had a whole pile of them that we had to approve. This is one that came in a little bit later. So it's housing support for their adult foster home that they run. So it's just so they get the reimbursement from the state through the housing support program.
This looks like for 1 year.
Yep, we have to do them every year.
Great, wishes of the board?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Howell.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Abdul. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Next up is to consider approval, renewal of Northland Counseling Koochiching Family Collaborative Purchase of Service Agreements.
I can let Tara speak to this one.
Sure.
She's been neck deep in this one, so.
Yeah, no. So our Koochiching County Family Collaborative provides services to the schools through Northland Counseling, and this is just simply the updated contract. This contract has been in place for years. It's just, there's been a few adjustments this year because with Indus closing and North Home not utilizing Northland, we had to do some refiguring. So this is for Falls, well, DC 361 and 362, so it falls in Little Fork. And then we're working on a separate contract to ensure services for North Home.
Okay. And they go, this is where they bring someone into the school, a certain amount of hours a week or whatever it is?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, do CTSS services with the students, and Head Start is included in this as well.
Right. Oh, yes.
That's what I was gonna ask, yeah,
Yep.
if they were still part of this.
Yeah, they're still a part of this too. So it's bringing those services to the kids. This is the kind of the gap coverage per se. They start working, so they can start working with the kiddos early if they don't have insurance. They do bill insurance, but if somebody's not on insurance, this covers that time where they can get started with the kid before and then work with them to get them on medical assistance or Minnesota Care or whatnot, so they can get those services. But this is to start the service early.
Yep,
So
sounds good.
It's a good
Now,
program. So, did they ever do it in North Home, did you say, or they're going to start?
We provided it to North Home, but this last year, once we did our assessment at the end of the year, they were available to North Home, but only on video, and so the students there didn't participate at all. It didn't work. So North Home has a different service that they are providing this particular service through. So we're just looking at how our collaborative can compensate them the same that we're doing for the other schools in a different way.
Yep, and it changed when the Indus school closed because Northland Counseling was going into the Indus school. They had a lot of students that they were working at in the Indus school as well. But when Indus school closed, those students moved. A majority of them went to Little Fork. And Little Fork was a recent addition to the collaborative. Actually, they weren't participating in the collaborative for years and years.
Yeah.
And then what was it, the last 2 years?
Yeah.
The last year basically, they've come on and started participating in the collaborative. So that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
We always wanted them to be involved, but they hadn't been, and then they contacted us and wanted to get involved. So.
And the reason why is because of this contract, this service through Northland. It's a lot easier for the schools because we offer this for just the paperwork and the systems that they have to work through the process. It's a lot easier for the schools to utilize it this way than to just go through North Home or Northland themselves, which is what they were doing. So.
Sounds good.
I'll make the motion.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Helm.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? And motion carries. And next up is consider approval of mutual aid agreement for public health and human services and use of resources in personnel and equipment.
Let Tara speak to this one as well.
Yeah, so this is something that's been in the works for years and it's finally come to a point where we could get it approved. So it's really exciting. It's our Northeast region for our emergency preparedness, being able to share supports throughout our counties when the situation is needed. We're such a small county in the fact of like our just employees, at least in public health, that when the response such as like the flood, just as an example, happened, it would have been really helpful if we could have pulled the emergency preparedness coordinators from the different counties to come and help alleviate some of the work that we were taking the whole brunt of, and the whole point behind it is to really try to reduce burnout, to find that find that answer to how we can address that, because that is what happens like throughout all the counties. When a response comes on, there's just not enough people, so you're working, you know,
Right.
day and night for all the days. So that's the reasoning behind it. And then that and supplies. I mean, St. Louis County, they have a bigger tax base. They've got a lot more grant money, and they've got a lot more resources. They've got trailers, and they have things that we could never think about even potentially getting here. So sharing those resources is a huge win for us.
This took some coordination and
Yeah.
collaboration, didn't it, to get all these entities together in some time, so appreciate that. Yeah, all these, that'd be great to have them on, you know, as part of this here too, because I know that we all struggle with resources when the trouble hits, you know, and like you say, they have a lot. Share those resources when we need them, that's a great idea. So, and I know you guys were all working, not everybody, most everybody, lots of folks were kind of double driving the ship there when all that flooding and stuff was going on, and I know yourself and then Derek and, you know, kind of had responsibilities in the basement over there for a little while, and then, you know, it's kind of touch and go for quite a while there. I know some of the sheriff's department were working, you know, 7 days a week and with no end in sight. So that would help hopefully cover this a little bit, so you get a little time off perhaps and take a break. Okay, well, that's great. That sounds really good, and all they're going to go to their respective boards too with this here.
Yep, that's going up for signatures to all the boards right now. Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, thank you for all your work. And wish you good luck.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach. Thank you, Commissioner Howell. Any discussion? Thank you again for all your work on it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, thanks for all your hard work.
Hearing no further discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries.
Thank
Very
you.
good.
All right,
Thank
guys,
you
have a good
very
night.
much. How's the auditor treasurer going to work here?
I know they can hear you guys, but I don't know if they,
Could she send her number? I can just put her on speakerphone.
and I can also speak to her RBA today as well.
Oh, okay, good. Good
So,
enough.
I was gonna join her collective thing, so.
Yeah, I just don't know. If we turn that system off, we'll be able to hear it here without echoing.
Oh,
but
yeah,
then
there was some
nobody
echo
else-
too up there as well,
Oh,
so.
okay.
Joan, are you able to speak? Still doesn't work.
So,
Yeah, still didn't work. So Joan, if it's all right, I'm gonna kind of say your RBA here and go over that since we've already talked about it and Adam knows about it and
I can put her
that
on
kind of
speaker
stuff.
here.
Otherwise,
You want me to
you got
call
her
her?
phone? Oh, perfect.
If she answers.
We're trying to call you, Joan.
Hello.
Hi, Joan.
hey, we're having
Hi.
some.
I had to mute my laptop here. Hold on, let me get in the other room so I don't hear myself on the give me feedback. Okay.
Hi, Joan. We're just going over your request here of this Shelley's retirement and stuff, and Brian's here to help explain to you guys working on it together, I imagine, and so. But we're having a speaker because we're having audio issues hearing. I guess people online may be able to hear us, but we can't hear them when they speak. So, but if you wanna,
That is correct.
if you wanna go over here, I got you on speakerphone here now, so we can all hear you pretty good.
Okay. Sure. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'm joining you from Bismarck. I'm on official new grandma duties, so that is why I could not be there today.
Congratulations.
It's exciting, but so January 3rd will be Shelley's last day. Sandra has indicated that she intends to promote that position per the union policy. So that will leave the Treasury Assistant position vacant. And I would like to get that filled prior to Shelley leaving so that Sandra has ample time to train in the new person and still have a little bit of time working under Shelley to train into the basics of that job.
And you're looking at a couple of different dates here, I see.
Yeah, and they're tentative, of course, depending on whoever fills that position, what works with their schedule. I would prefer the earlier date, being Shelley and I both have some vacation time scheduled in December, and just to give that person a full month of training and doing the daily duties, balancing cash and all of that stuff that Sandra currently does.
Okay. And there's a little bit of cost associated with this here, with the overlap.
Yes.
That's not budgeted, it sounds like.
Correct. Shelley had originally not intended to retire until possibly next spring. So I was originally thinking it would be part of the 2025 budget, but then her plans changed.
Well, we're not going to hold that against her.
No, I don't blame her.
So no, she's great. So
She has very wholeheartedly agreed to come in 2025 as much as the para-regulations will allow to train during critical times like running tax statements, tint, and that sort of thing.
Well, that's
to
great.
make sure that it's a smooth transition.
Well, that's great. I know it's very important to get those things out on time, and I think there's some timelines there that we have to follow too. So
Correct. Yep. So yeah, I'm estimating if the new person, it depends on which insurance option they choose. Full family, if they start mid-November, would be around $11,500 to cover all the payroll, taxes, and benefits.
And then Brian's here too, and you kind of got the process set up already to go, I imagine?
Yeah, it's very similar to what we did with the public health. We expect it to be like Sandra taking the position, and then we'll open it up for internal, applicants, and then from there we'll look at outside applicants as well. So it's going to be a domino effect, essentially.
And this will cover all of that
Yep.
right here? Okay. All right. All right, Joan, anything else, Joan?
No, that's it for now.
All right, well, thank you.
I just want to say we'll definitely miss Shelley and her 18 years of experience. She's been a fantastic employee and service to the community, so
Yep.
we really thank her for her service.
Absolutely.
Yes, I echo that. She has a wealth of knowledge, and we're very appreciative that she's willing to come back and share that with Sandra and I during the transition.
Absolutely, we do appreciate that. Like you say, it's hard to watch that knowledge go out the door, but I know that she's very well deserved too. So, great. Wishes of the board.
I'll make the motion.
For the November 12th or the...
I would say November, if they're both gonna be gone during December.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion from Commissioner Roach to approve the hiring process for November 12th, which would give 39 days of overlap at initial cost of about $11,000, or potential cost of $11,350. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Hill. Any discussion? Would this be then a contingency fund type of initiative here for payment?
Yeah, I think it would have to be.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got a couple other things in there too competing, but I think there's enough to cover this.
Okay, all right. All right, so it'll be out of the contingency, depending on the hire, and then Brian will get going on the process here after today. And all right, Joan, anything else to add, Joan?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? And motion carries. Thank you, Joan.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Thanks.
Bye. All right. Hey, Nathan. Nope, Sheriff first.
I was gonna say,
I was just messing with you.
Nate's gonna take forever, right? I got the easy one.
Sorry about that. I didn't look at the sheet. I just looked up to Nathan. It looked like he was ready to go. So, anyway,
You're ahead of schedule.
morning, Sheriff.
Good morning.
And you are looking at a renewal of the contract, jail service contract from Public Health?
Yeah, so this is something, the original contract we implemented in 2022. It expires later this month. This is something we originally had worked with Derek and Kathy really hard upon. Because as you know, at that time, the DOC inspection had highlighted that we didn't have nursing services in the jail. So Public Health was a great partner, stepped up, and then we just recently agreed to renew the contract for another 2 years. So it'll bring us through 2026. And I don't believe there's any changes to that.
No, there was one minor one. It just added if available.
That was it. Yeah, the correction staff will be present if available. So it was
Or if necessary.
If necessary, yeah.
Yes, I think it is.
That was.
Everything else looks okay within that same thing, just then, this is kind of a continuation of
This is
that
a-
requirement here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, and then, it's just one of those things where always, we don't know what the DLC is going to throw at us next, so we just have to, pivot when need be. But it's been a great partnership so far, and we look to continue that partnership for a couple of years, and then just kind of see where the road leads us.
Well, it sounds like they're willing, right? So.
Yeah.
As long as they know about it, I guess. At
Yeah.
least, so. But no, I appreciate them stepping up and doing that too, and kind of in a bit of a pinch too at the time. But yeah, like you say, I think it's a good step moving forward, and glad to have them have that service. So, any questions for Grant?
Well, I just had a comment or and maybe a question.
Yeah.
Again, at the end of the meeting there, the Itasca commissioner, their new jail, and maybe you're aware of the DOC come in there to approve it or something. Told them they had to hire 4 more staff.
And they're slightly different. I don't know if you've visited their jail at all. They're bigger. They actually built in capacity so that they could house inmates from other counties. So they have different housing units. That was one of the things I'm glad that our county chose not to do. Because housing other counties' inmates, and we may if we have the bed space, but they built bed space to accommodate other counties.
So the question is, are we going to get hit with told that we have to hire more staff?
I don't anticipate it, but at the end of the day, it's a great question. I don't have a crystal ball either. So that's why our jail is not, we have a couple more beds in our existing jail, but it's not, so the current staffing model by the DLC, we didn't add, we didn't go from 30 to 80. We went from 32 to 40, which that's the current staffing model of the DLC, that 140, that direct supervision. Could they come in a year and a half and say, yeah, you can only hold 20. If you have more than that, you have to hire 5. Absolutely. That's one of those things. I spoke to this summer. I had a brief conversation with the commissioner of corrections, and just very respectfully expressed my frustrations with the one-size-fits-all model at the DOC. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, hey, we do the very best we can to keep our inmates and our staff safe, but at the end of the day, rural Minnesota looks a lot different than, the metro or another place. We just don't have the pool of employees. We don't have, multiple medical companies that are competing to provide medical services to the jail, right? We're scrambling to provide these food services. That was another one I brought up to them. The difficulties we went through just to get a food service provider, and ultimately the county hired a jail cook. So just those are every time the state changes a regulation as it relates to jails, it has, I would argue, a far greater impact on small rural counties than it does on even in Itasca, who has more capacity and more financial abilities.
So it may have been something that they missed in their planning, or
I think it's from, you know, I won't venture too far into an area where I'm not an expert, but just from conversations I've had and with the sheriff there, like he wasn't there when they started building the jail. He came in towards the end. He was elected towards, you know, in the end. So I think he was caught unaware by some stuff. But, and that's why the county, I mean, when the county made the decision to move forward with the jail, you're moving forward with what you know at the time, too, you know, and with that mindset of, let's not double our capacity because we don't know. We know what we know. We don't know what doubling means, and we're not going to fill it. You know, we can fill the beds that we have built for, but contracting out seems great, but I don't think you ever want to build for it, which I believe I task it to.
Yeah, I would say that's, you know, we just never know what's going to happen, but I would be prepared for staffing changes. I mean, nobody knows, and like you say, you can't look into the crystal ball, but the way things are going and the way things have kind of leaned, it's more for care, and I understand that to a certain extent too, but I think the sheriff makes a good point of, you know, we are a little bit unique here with, you know, we may have a variety of people there, but we don't have the huge variety of people to where it's necessary. At least I wouldn't think so either. So the one size fits all is, you know, doesn't always work, but at the same time, I think we need to be prepared for the potential of staff changes.
it hardly ever works up here.
Yeah, if I could just add one more comment, I think what we do too is we have a combined corrections officer dispatcher position. That's how there's a lot of entities that their jail is completely separate from their PSAP operation. We have those combined. So I'm not gonna say anything, but I'll allude to it that's where I see in the future issues being brought up.
Yeah, but you know, at that time too, there's always opportunities to contract that service out. You know, that's what some other counties do that maybe are smaller in capacity where they don't have the volume of calls to warrant having someone there to do that. They you know, obviously you lose the local touch though too. You know, you have a lot of people that live here for forever. That's got to be a consideration when you cross that bridge when you get there. I mean, you live in a little county in southern Minnesota. There's 3 counties together that are, even 4 counties, 5 counties that are the same size as our one county. Well, then it makes sense for them to kind of join together. But our county here is a little bit different too. We have a lot of area to cover, a lot of roads, and you know, I wouldn't say staffing shortages, but staffing needs here and there too. You know, you want to be in the right place at the right time. So.
Well, we're going into a crystal ball session next Monday or something, so you know, we're kind of thinking ahead a little bit on stuff like that, you know.
Yep.
I think it's a great question. I don't have the answer.
Well, I don't expect you to, but I mean, it's just information more than anything.
Yeah.
It just seemed like they were, what do you mean we gotta hire 4 more people?
Right. Well, we went off the rails there.
Those are good conversations.
No, I was just looking back at what we just make sure we were just looking for a motion for approval of the renewal of the contract with public health for nursing services within the jail.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner McIntyre.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hell. Thank you, Sheriff.
I'll just grab a signature from you too.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you.
Now you're up.
Welcome, Nathan.
Good morning.
Morning. How's it going?
Good.
Some activities for next year here?
Yeah, so this is kind of looking to have the board approve our proposed 2025 timber auction dates. So we like to do that this time of year just so we can, when we do put out our November auction listing, we'll put these dates for 2025 in there. So So these are similar dates, timeframes as what we've had in the past, so. Just more or less a formality, I guess, so.
I'll make the motion. Need a motion? I'll make the motion.
Make a motion. And still in Big Falls? At the
Yeah, I
home?
mean, that's kind of what we're aiming for, is we're gonna hold them at Big Falls. That seems to be working. I mean, years ago, pre-COVID, we used to have one up here, hold one, and a couple of them up here, one in Little Fork, and then one in Big Falls. And, you know, Big Falls is a nice central location for those folks coming from North Home, the folks coming from the Falls, and it just seems to work. It's got a lot of space there, so the only downside is, I think, for the loggers, there's no cafe for them to go to afterwards. So.
Work on that.
Well, we have more.
But we give good donuts, so.
I know.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Roach, thank you. And yeah, the donuts are pretty good. So appreciate you putting that on too, Nathan.
Mm-hmm.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. We are set for next year.
Scary, we're talking about 25 already.
24 isn't started yet, is it? Yeah, it is, isn't it? It goes by really fast. And you have some results.
Yeah, so this is just informational for the board. We always recap our timber auction results with the board after they happen. So we had an auction back on Wednesday, August 7th, and we sold just over 22,000 cords for a total sale value of $704,000. So we do have a couple sales tracks that remain unsold, smaller, kind of less desirable ones that maybe somebody will pick them up over the counter at some point. But we did see, so aspen is kind of the main species that we kind of, everybody talks about. We did see aspen, the average price drop about $4.50–5 a cord from our May auction, but the August auction was up from where we were in January, and we had less, there was a few folks that weren't at the auction that normally show up, so, and I don't know, St. Louis County had an auction last week and they had less folks there as well, so it's a little surprising just based on the demand that I think that's out there in the market right now, that more people weren't there, but that's what it was, so.
How's the summer cut going?
It's picking up. In the last couple of weeks, we had very, very minimal activity on timber sales to start the summer, just because of the moisture that we've been getting. We had a few pine thinnings go on, and that was about it. Now we're starting to see some aspen sales open up the last couple of weeks. We have our annual forest certification audit coming up end of next week, and so yeah, a lot of the sales that we'll go visit are those pine sales, just because we haven't had a lot of activity. So hopefully things stay dry into the fall, and we'll continue to see activity on our sales. So
I see a lot of high ground cutting right now.
Yeah.
I go out, but I don't get it everywhere, but
yeah,
places I've been out in the woods, you find them dry areas or dry areas. Yeah, it's finally, it's like, knock on wood, we finally maybe are getting out of that rainy pattern that we were in for May and June and first half of July, so.
Yeah, the trucks were still coming in last night at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, they need it. I think they're scaling on Saturdays even for part of the day, which is abnormal for the summertime, so.
Yeah, I think they're gaining inventory right now, but that could change.
Yeah.
They're not probably going to come close to making up the deficit, but unless we have a real good fall.
Yeah, I think, we've seen it all over the map. We could get a, hopefully we don't, but we could see a really wet fall, and we could see one of those ones where it's powder dry out there in the woods and they just keep going, so that's what we're hoping for, so. Any questions on that stuff?
Good.
Pretty quiet.
All
Thank you,
right.
Nathan.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We are a little early for environmental services, so we're just gonna take a little recess here. Let's,
If you'd like. I'm sure he's the sheriff.
is the sheriff need to be here for that?
I don't think he needs to be,
Okay.
but I don't know if he was planning on it. I guess I don't know that.
He's
I don't-
online though.
He's online there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Okay. So we'll rearrange that.
Yeah, we'll start out with, we'll go in order here. We're still a little bit early here, a few minutes early, but Matt's got item 5 we'll start with, and we'll move that to the top of his list, and then he has a short presentation on the short-term rental and kind of go over the highlights of that.
So the sheriff's department is replacing a couple of their older squad trucks, and we'd like to upgrade our old 1997 Chevy 1500 truck that was given to us by the assessor's office many years ago. The request is to authorize the Environmental Services Department to purchase the sheriff's 2018 Dodge Ram 1500 tradesman truck. And there's the VIN number, has 178,000 miles for $10,000 with the amount from the Environmental Service Department budgeted amount in AIS Fund 12605-6675, and authorize Environmental Service Department to sell the old 1997 truck. We plan to make minor improvements, including installing the front center console, which was removed for the sheriff's equipment, installing identification decals, and some minor wiring in the cab. And we'll fit that extra work into our existing environmental services budget. The AIS fund is a restricted fund that can be used for AIS purposes. Obviously, we administer the AIS program, so it would be an appropriate use of those funds for the purchase, and we would use it for AIS purposes as well as other things.
You're getting rid of the old bomb? The old green?
Well, at some point I'm going to have a Fred Flintstone truck that I'll have my feet on the ground on. The side walls are getting a little rusty, but it's been good. I mean, it's fine, and that's why we use it for site inspections and various other things, within our department, and it's nice to have a truck available for that purpose, and taking advantage of ones that are being traded in or no longer useful for the other departments is perfect for us.
Does the sheriff go through the carpool with these as well?
I don't think those ones, no.
Okay.
No.
No, they do not. I don't think they do. Nope.
They're kind of on their own. All right, wishes of the board.
I'll make the motion. It's in the budget.
It is in that budget.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? And motion carries.
Thank you. So the Koochiching County short-term rental ordinance was adopted by the board June 11th. It was effective after publishing, and that was June 22nd was effective date of the ordinance. And so I just want to go over the basic, if someone comes into our office is interested in short-term rental, I want to highlight the items within the ordinance that we talked to them about and what's required of them. So there's an annual licensing requirement. There's a possibility of an interim use permit, depending on the zoning, lot size, and whether it's riparian or non-riparian. They're required to get a Minnesota Department of Health license. And the Minnesota Department license, they do inspections, they determine occupancy, they check water, they check sewer, safety items. So the Minnesota Department of Health kind of pulls that off our shoulders based on the way that we've structure to the ordinance. So it's kind of a good setup for us in that respect. So they do that interior inspection and then also the testing of those items. They have to have a verification of a minimum of $1 million of property liability insurance coverage for short-term rental operation. They have to provide us 2 scale site plans, survey or permanent agreement or property agreement with neighbors, and demarcation of property lines. So they either have to go to their neighbors and say, okay, this is where I put some posts in the ground and this is where I agree the white line is, and if you agree with that, we can sign an agreement and we're good to go. Or they can have a certificate of survey and then they know right where it's at, and they set the demarcation on the line based on the survey. So they have the 2 choices. They either can spend the money on the survey or work with the property owners next door to work it out. So, but either way, they have to do it because short-term renters need to know the boundaries of what they're renting. So the idea is to keep them on their own property and resolve issues before they become issues. So, a current certificate of compliance. If they have a private sewer system, that would have to be in compliance with current ordinances and state rules. And then those that are on city sewer, we would work with the East Kooch Sanitary Sewer District and make sure they're okay with the use and also any issues with the system that they would be concerned about. So, and we'd have them sign off on that as well. They have parking requirements. There's parking requirements within our ordinance that basically I think it's one parking spot per bedroom is what's in our ordinance. The short-term rental license shall not be transferable upon property transfer, change in ownership. A license could be revoked if a short-term rental is non-compliant with the ordinance. There's a revocation process. Any violations of the ordinance are deemed a misdemeanor, but we make attempts to help property owners become compliant. If they continue to be out of compliance, we could turn it over to the county attorney for further action, but we try to work with people and try to get people to be compliant. After the fact fees, a fee shall be assessed on property owners who operate a short-term rental without a Koochiching County short-term rental license. Properties in non-compliance with the short-term rental ordinance could be subject to an after-the-fact fee, and the fee is established by the county board in their fee schedule approved by you every year. So the after-the-fact fee is 3 times the fee, but I mean, obviously the board could choose to apply anything they want, but that's set by the board. There's an appeal process if a license is revoked. There's prohibitions. No short-term rental operations will be allowed in recreational vehicles or temporary structures, tents, yurts, etc. No short-term rental operations will be allowed in any accessory structure except a guest cabin that conforms to existing county regulations and ordinances. There's a density restriction. The density restriction is based on so if someone applies for a short-term rental, we establish a circle around that short-term rental unit. I put the center point at the approximate location of that unit and then draw a circle, 750-foot radius around that unit. If there's more than 2, or if there's 2 short-term rentals, approved short-term rentals within that circle, that application will be denied, and then they have the opportunity to be put on a waiting list. If one of the other 2 short-term rentals no longer are short-term renting, if they transfer the property and they lose their license because of transfer or non-compliance, then the person on the waiting list would have the opportunity to then short-term rent. But once there's 2 within the 750-foot radius, that's it within that area. So, and that's the way it's structured. And again, the plan is to review this ordinance once a year from October through December by the Planning Commission for possible ordinance updates or changes. So all of this could be changed, at the wishes of the board if there was a concern about anything related to it. Let's see. There's, the short-term rentals are subject to the Koochiching County lodging tax, so they have to, register for that and make sure they're compliant with what's required under the lodging tax. The lodging tax district is a limited district. It doesn't encompass the whole county, so some of those would not be, within the district and therefore not subject to it. They could voluntarily, pay into it if they wanted to, but they wouldn't be required if they're not in the district. So there must have, or a short-term renter or rental must have an owner or owner's agent that is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and shall respond to complaints within 30 minutes whenever the property is rented for short-term rental purposes. And then they obviously have to have proper waste management. But that 30 minutes, there was a lot of discussion about, how do we make sure that if there's issues, how do we make sure that the owners of the short-term rental respond reasonably? And so this is what we came up with. It could be the owner's agent or the owner, but there has to be someone available to respond to something during short-term rental periods within 30 minutes. So that's just kind of the highlights of the short-term rental ordinance. And if you have any questions, you certainly could hit me.
So they have a 700-foot radius. How many is do they have a cap on the county or so many square miles or up at the lake? Or
No.
There
No.
can be as many as.
It's within if there's two within a 700-foot radius circle, then that's the limit. And so when you go out into the more rural areas of the county,
Right.
They're farther apart, so it might not apply or might not affect them as much. There are some permitted uses within the ordinance, permitted areas. So like a commercial district that's strictly for short-term rental or short-term rental doesn't fall within that 750-foot radius. I believe like an R1 district that is a larger parcel, I don't believe that would fall within the restricted area. This 750-foot radius circle and the density restriction is kind of geared towards smaller lots and smaller areas, where there's more dense development. And where, if you didn't have a restriction, you might have more rentals within a smaller area. So the idea is to try to keep the general character of a neighborhood. In a lot of these places, they might be residential neighborhoods, and the idea is not to, the thought process of the planning and zoning is not to overrun the neighborhood with just short-term rentals. Maybe just have a few, and that's maybe appropriate. But there's also residential use, and those people that use it for residential purposes can continue to enjoy it and not have to worry about too many of short-term rentals. And that could be changed one way or the other. It was what they came up with. There was a lot of debate both ways. I mean, we were at the last public hearing that we were at, there was discussion there shouldn't be any short-term rentals, and there was discussion that everyone should be able to do short-term rental at any place at any time. So, I mean, the opinions vary greatly.
Just about everything that Matt mentioned on this list went through planning and zoning committee too. There's some stuff that was already in the ordinance that was just kind of transferred over to the new document. But a lot of these here, every one of these items were talked about. The density deal, that was more of a concern of local folks having homes to see that they don't, it's kind of twofold. It's not to prevent anything. It's just the idea too of there's always concern of the valuation of the properties skyrocketing. And one of those ways we tried to combat that was with an IUP, which is an interim use, which an interim use is it's valid for 5 years, correct? Upon renewal of the permit.
Yep.
So once you get an IUP, there's a validation period for 5 years. If there's any issues with the permit or any compliance issues, well then that can obviously be revoked, but it's not permanent on the property, which means that it doesn't go with the property when the property sells. And that was a concern that, in our little area, we don't have, hundreds and hundreds of these either, but at the same time, we want to be considerate of the wishes of the neighborhood as well. And that was one of the concerns that I heard over the course of time with the valuations and the way they fluctuated and increased, And I don't think, personally, I don't think government should get in the middle of valuing properties by adding certain amenities to those properties. So you're getting a temporary amenity for a period of time that you own it forever, you have it forever. If you take care of it and everything's good to go, then it's good to go forever. But if that property changes hands or sells out of one person, LLC, corporation, whatever, it needs to be renewed. That doesn't mean it won't be renewed, it just needs to be renewed. So, but anyway, that's just a little bit of explanation. It goes into a waiting list, which I don't foresee as being a big deal, honestly, because of our area. We don't have a lot of these on the list necessarily that will be waiting for them. And I think, what's the percentage, Matt, about 5%? Or is it about 7%, wasn't it?
Of what?
Of all the available parcels, about 7% of all the available parcels will be available for IUPs for short-term rentals. It kind of worked out with the radius.
Depending on how you,
Right.
depending on what applications occurred and where they're at, and then whether or not they're subject to the density restriction.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, if you ran down the lake, I mean, we figured if you were running east here and just kind of going through the county's area on the east side of our county here on Rainy Lake, we estimated maybe, there could potentially be 100 short-term rentals within that area. And within that area, I can't remember the number of parcels, but it was much greater than that. And so that was just to give a sense. So, and I don't know if that's a perfect number, but just generally, just to give you a sense of how many there could
Obviously,
be.
the number would change if the density of the area, radius area gets eliminated or gets bigger or smaller, then you obviously have more or less too. So, but that number that we looked at in other areas was right on that 5% number. It's kind of what they actually had. There's some anomalies out there in different counties where they have way higher percentages of short-term rentals, but they're kind of a transient, people that buy and then I think it's Cook County, Lake County, that area there, they have higher density of those, and they have a different way of looking at it. There's a time over there where they didn't have a place for people to live that were working in that county. They had to go somewhere else and live. So we don't. That's kind of one of the other concerns that we have. There's a housing crisis everywhere. I'm not saying that this is really going to help anything. If you can, find a place, great. But it gets more and more difficult. So that was one of the concerns too that we kind of had in the background of considering all this too. So.
Yeah, and right now we have 7. So prior to this, we received our first 4 applications within the new ordinance and had the public hearing. These are the first 4 in front of you under the new ordinance. But prior to that, we had 7 approved short-term rentals that went through our old process, which was a conditional use permit and a possible zoning change, depending on their current zoning. And so when we talk about the numbers that are potentially out there, I'm not sure where we're going to end up, as we move along here, and how many people are going to actually apply to have a short-term rental. I believe we sent out roughly 30 letters to property owners that may have a history of short-term rental. Is that about right? 30?
18.
18, okay. I'm a little off there. But, so yeah, 18, 20 that we've sent, and we had information over the years that maybe they had been short-term renting. And so I'm just not sure where we're going to end up, as far as total numbers. But those are kind of the numbers right now.
So before this ordinance was passed, what were the requirements? Just a zoning change maybe, and what else?
And a conditional use permit.
Conditional use permit?
Yeah.
And what was that?
You apply for a conditional use permit to run a short-term rental within a district, which would be, that allow resort-type use. And that permit would allow for that use. And it's a public hearing.
That was it?
It was a public hearing.
Yep.
And then it would come to the board for approval, similar to this.
Because this new ordinance creates as many problems as it solves. It drove the business virtually out. 2 businesses really are affected by it. it's a problem.
Sure.
It creates more problems as many as it solves.
Sure.
That's not, I would hope that's not the goal, and I know it's not, but we have to figure out a way to address that. A problem at the lake isn't a problem in Birchdale.
Sure.
Or North,
Sure.
or Big Falls. Maybe before the ordinance, we had enough laws or regulations in place to cure the problems that were coming up. The ordinance, for example, they require them to build a new well. The water tested fine, still wasn't good enough,
So,
from what I'm hearing.
yeah, so what I would say is that short-term rentals, even in our old ordinance, Minnesota Department of Health required a license before our ordinance. If people didn't get a Minnesota Department of Health license, they were non-compliant with the state rules. So that was a rule that was already in place.
Right, okay, but the state would enforce that,
That's correct.
not the county, not you.
Right, no, that's correct.
Okay.
Yep. And I'm not enforcing the Minnesota Department of Health rules. Our ordinance does say you have to have a Minnesota Department of Health license as required by the state. But yes, it wasn't us telling them that there's a Minnesota Department of Health license. It was up to them to follow all state and federal rules. We would approve, we would go through a process and approve or deny a conditional use permit for short-term rental, and it would be up to the applicant to be compliant with all other rules. So in some sense, yes, I mean, it would be, in this ordinance, the county says you must have a Minnesota Department of Health license.
That's a problem. It's not what we should be doing. It's done.
So is this a county issue, this Minnesota Department of Health license? Do we have to have that? Is that one of the requirements of the state?
That's a requirement of the state.
Of the state, not of the
Yeah.
county though.
But for us, if we adopt a short-term rental ordinance, there was discussion about, we don't want to have to do inspections, deal with water and some of the things, you know, the safety concerns that Minnesota Department of Health deals with. And so that's, you know, it takes it out of us. We don't want to be inspectors of people's homes, you know, that's not our role.
Well, that
We're
would
not
be-
building inspectors.
Maybe we could bring that up to the state delegation, to kind of mention that with the fees and things too, to have like a slide scale fee or something, like you say, something different, because I know there's $1 million homes that are, you know,
I
not
think-
equivalent to.
I absolutely
So-
think maybe we need to look at something like population density. I mean, if around the lake is obviously much more dense than out of the town, and that's not gonna, that makes a huge difference. Makes a huge difference. They're in compliance. They got water that test, they updated the sewer, and they don't qualify.
It just doesn't make any
Not only
sense.
that, they're paying a fee based on the assessor's value, and that's not, we're not business friendly. These people, all they're trying to do is do a little bit of good, bring people into the county, maybe. It's you know, call it an unintended consequence, but I just, you know, it's a consequence. Birchdale's got a store and a church and a couple of houses, and you hit them both, or we hit them both. You know, those people who walk over to the store and buy a 6-pack or a soda or whatever. I'm frustrated.
Sure.
And it's not just Birchdale, I mean, any place out, you know, out in the county.
I can't believe that they're making them drill a well when it passed. That's the part that I'm not understanding.
Well,
So they don't, the Minnesota Department of Health, if it's an undocumented well, it has to be documented. It has to, you have to have, know the depth of the well. You have to have, you know, how much casing's there. So my understanding of the particular well that is in question is they've never dug on it because they're worried, they don't want to lose the water, right? So they don't want to mess with it. And so they're asking, can we just test it from within the house?
Right.
We got a water source. We know it's a well. It's an old well, but we don't know anything about it, but it's giving us good water right now. And Minnesota Department of Health's answer to that is we have to document all the necessary things because we have to know that there's no contaminants going into the well or all these other things that are important to the Minnesota Department of Health. And that's what they do. And the way they document it is having certain things that have to be met. And, you know, in this particular case, they can't meet those requirements on that particular well because they don't want to dig it up and expose it, you know, and
If it's the water, they should tell them whether contaminants are going in there.
yeah, you know, again, it's outside of what we do. We're not testing that water. What Minnesota Department of Health's requirements are outside of us. But I'm just secondhand information providing, you know, kind of that context.
I'm going to roughly guess that well, given the history of that company, that well was probably drilled 100 years ago. They should have been there and documented it then, the Department of Health, if they wanted that.
Yeah,
You know, I'm just guessing.
or it was hand dug, or who knows? I don't know.
If it passes, it passes.
You have a program with this, you don't, we kind of going through and documenting all the undocumented wells in the county?
Yeah, so we're working with the Minnesota Department of Health on a project to document as many wells as we can, but in this case, we wouldn't be able to document it because, you know, they don't want to expose it, you know, right? They don't want to mess with it because they're afraid, you know, maybe it'll collapse or some other issue, and I don't know, you know, but for whatever reason, they don't want to mess with something that they want to keep, right? They believe it's a good well, and I'm not going to mess with it.
Well, maybe the reason could be cost.
Well, it could be, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it not could be. I mean,
Well, drilling a new well for sure is super cost, yeah.
for a place that rents for $2,500 a year,
Yeah,
regulated amount.
yeah.
That's not what we should be doing.
Yeah, and, you know, you had asked the planning commission to study, you know, special events and then also study the idea of behind public works projects. You know, so that's on the agenda of the planning commission to study those issues. And this ties in maybe to that special event thing, but I don't know, you know, I'm not sure. But maybe there's some other avenues, and I did talk to the owners about that request being made and that we're working on that, but, you know, it's...
Our department needs to be aggressive in defending our citizens, not necessarily subservient to the Department of Health. If we don't push back, we have no hope of ever surviving. One size does not fit all. We had that discussion here earlier. You know, I've seen the need for an ordinance, but then after you start seeing things like this, you can start seeing, well, maybe the enforcement avenues were already there. It just needed to be enforced. The noise, the garbage, this and that. So it's troubling.
Yeah, we heard lots of different opinions through that process, you know, and so, yeah.
Whether an opinion in the west part of the county should be as valuable as
Absolutely,
opinion east.
yeah. Everybody's welcome to come and, you know, try to, and that particular property owner did come to the meetings a couple different times, so that was good.
Try to doing things right.
Yeah, and that was good, yeah. Oh, and they're good, you know, they're
And
good.
wham,
Yeah.
bang. I mean,
Yeah.
it's incentive to not do things right.
Is the state fee, Matt, is that an annual fee or is that a one-time fee?
No, it's annual.
It's annual, okay. So you don't buy it once and it's good for a while with a renewal
No,
fee?
you
or
renew it
something?
every year. You have to, I mean, the Minnesota Department of Health license was in place prior to us even adopting this ordinance. So those requirements were in place. Whether people were following those requirements, that's, I can't
I
answer.
think that's about $500, isn't it, for that?
3 something, I think, or
3
something like that, 350. I don't have the fees right in front of me, but something like that, yeah.
Any of you guys, what do they charge you?
Sounds about right.
What, 350?
So, and there were those people that were getting those licenses, and then there were some that, obviously didn't know about it and didn't pursue it. And so if the Minnesota Department of Health found out, if someone made a complaint, to the Minnesota Department of Health, and they would follow up on it, they received one on a different property that they had to follow up on. The person wasn't following the regulations, and so the Minnesota Department of Health, went through their process to either get them compliant or they would be risking having to cease their operations.
But we don't make the rules for them.
No. No, but I just wanted to kind of hit the highlights on the ordinance and what we talk about. So that was kind of the reason why I went over that. And I know that at our last public hearing, there was concerns from neighbors that, certain things, they were concerned about that are addressed in the ordinance. So I thought I should hit on those highlights so that at least those items were discussed here.
Thank you, Matt.
Is our ops online now? I see Karen.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, great. Could you pull up Karen's property?
Oh, here we go again. What is that? Yeah, you went out again.
Oh, they're gone. Can anyone hear us online?
Yeah.
No, kicked out. Something bumped it. You're like,
We shouldn't ask about something like this.
Yeah, it makes a buzzing noise when it clicks out.
Boy, technology is really
Good today.
fantastic. Yeah, helping us out today.
Get construction going. Yeah, I gotta just plug it, unplug it. I'm not knocking the computer out, but it's not hooked to TV. That's what happened.
Well, yeah, right, but I'm just.
Do you want to deal with one that someone's here, or you want to wait till that comes back up?
Well, let's see how long this takes. We'll give it a couple minutes. If it doesn't come back on, we'll just go in person in the room here.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Oh, you can?
Okay.
Oh, that's great.
We just lost video here. We're having some
Yeah, the
technical.
meeting's going on, but TVs are
Okay.
glitching out.
TVs aren't going.
Okay.
All right, sounds good.
All right. So do you want me to just
Yep,
continue?
go ahead.
Okay. So the Planning and Zoning Commission met on Thursday, August 8th, 2024 to hold a public hearing on the interim use permit application submitted by Craig and Karen Opp in order to convert their lake home into a short-term rental. The parcel is located at 1982 County Road 138, International Falls, which is located approximately 11 miles east of International Falls on Rainy Lake. Approval of the interim use permit will allow the applicant to apply for a short-term rental license as required in the Koochiching County Short-Term Rental Ordinance. As per section 5.2B of the Koochiching County Short-Term Rental Ordinance, an interim use permit is required for this shoreline riparian parcel. If approved, as per section 5.16A1 of the Koochiching County Zoning Ordinance, the initial interim use permit will be valid for 5 years. Subsequent renewal and continuation of the interim use permit is conditional upon the compliance level of the owner with the conditions of approval, which shall include the continued compliance with all short-term rental ordinance and licensing requirements. Subsequent renewal term will be determined by the county board. Change in ownership or loss or forfeiture of a license under the county short-term rental ordinance will immediately terminate any interim use permit issued for this use. At the public hearing, the Planning and Zoning Commission heard information provided by the applicant and received public comment. The Planning and Zoning Commission made the recommendation to approve the interim use permit application as submitted. And so it's up to the board to make the decision on their recommendation.
Thank you, Matt. So for consideration is to approve the interim use permits 2024-1002 short-term rental property for Craig and Karen Opp.
Would you like them to speak about their short-term rental?
Yes, please, yes.
Karen, can you share information about your short-term rental?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So hi, good morning everyone. I'm Karen Ott. My husband and I have been coming up to Rainy Lake area for 20 years. We recently purchased the property and are really excited to have this be our retirement home. But we're just a couple years out from that. And the house did need quite a bit of work inside. So in order to recoup some of the cost until we can actually retire there, we are looking to do a part-time short-term rental. So when we're not using it, as we do have children still in high school and sporting events and things like that, so we can't be there as often as we'd like, is to rent it out to other families on a short-term rental basis during the times when we're not occupying it.
Thank you, Karen. And Karen, if I may ask, you attended the planning and zoning meeting here a couple Thursdays ago?
Yes, that's correct.
And on Thursday, August 8th. And then there was some mention of the rental ordinance talk there, and then that there was maybe some non-compliance at the time of when you were renting it without the permit or without the IUP or anything.
So yeah, so it is that as after the county here passed the ordinance, is we did begin renting it out. As of course, as you can appreciate, that summer season is the prime time. But we had everything done, right? So it was all of the health inspection in process, as well as the short-term ordinance permit, all in process. And if I recall, I believe, doesn't the short-term ordinance that you just passed, it has where to get into compliance, I thought it was into September. But yes, so we have been renting it out this summer. Again, after the ordinance was passed and everything, we've done all the applications. And we do have our Department of Health license.
But it wasn't approved, right? That's why we're here today, is to approve that?
Today is to approve the
IUP, right? So you can move forward. So this is to approve the IUP, so you can move forward with the licensure, correct?
Yes.
So you don't have a license then right now?
That is correct. That's all in process.
But you don't have a license. Okay, thank you. All right. Well, we had some discussion at the planning and zoning. This is really not their purview, is to set the fees. This is this board's purview to do that. And in those fees, we had discussion earlier at this board on how this fee structure should be set up. Commissioner Erickson, he has some concerns of how this is laid out. However, we also want to have compliance with this interim use permitting. We want people to obviously apply for it. We also want them to be in compliance at all times. That doesn't mean sometimes. It doesn't mean while you're getting the permit. That doesn't mean any of that. That means that you need to follow the rules. And this was a blatant disregard of the rules, in my opinion. Here, this was being rented without, whether it's in process or not. I think there was some action to not rent and some correspondence with the environmental director here to that you are in non-compliance and that you should not be renting. I don't know how we would appreciate the people that actually follow the rules against the people that don't. Is kind of what my little bit of concern is here. And I think, with some of the public concern that we have from the existing residents that live here, is that compliance. And that is one of those things. The noise, all that other types of stuff, I think that falls under a different area. Obviously, we want people to be respectful of one another, obviously, too. But that would be more of all those other types of deals and conditions are already set up. We don't have to do that here. They're already under the laws of the state, and we don't do that. But what we do here is we have to find a middle ground on how we can actually enforce and make this enforceable. And if we don't have any enforcement at all, then what's the sense of having any process? Then we wasted a lot of time at the planning and zoning doing this process for someone that's not going to follow the rules anyway. So if there's no consequence for not following the rules, how do you actually enforce anything? That would be kind of trying to catch an eel. It gets pretty slippery to do that. So, and I appreciate the people that do apply, and I appreciate you applying too, Mrs. Up. But I think too that I think you were informed of not being allowed to rent this as a short-term rental. Now as a longer rental, anything that's I think 30 days or more. I think that was allowed underneath the current ordinance. However, the rental for this shorter term was not allowed. But I appreciate your honesty in admitting that as well. So I do appreciate going through the motions and trying to because I know there's folks out there that are maybe not in compliance perhaps, and we just want to kind of get an idea of what's going on out there, and it is for the safety of the residents as well. There are MDH requirements for a reason, so people don't drink bad water. There are requirements for different sewer type things. There's requirements for residency and different things like this here. I know you understand. So I won't go on and on, but they are set in there for a reason. It can't be a free-for-all for everyone. There's carbon monoxide issues, and you hear these things happening at least a couple times a year with that. So those are the types of things that we want to be concerned about for our citizens and for the people that are visiting here as well. So
Absolutely.
we don't want them to have a bad
completely agree. And again, I mean, we applied for it immediately as soon as the ordinance was passed.
Yep, and we appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, if I may just add the information out of the ordinance that Karen had kind of referred to.
Please.
So, Article 3.0, annual license required. So, no short-term rent, and I'll just kind of read those sections that apply to what Karen was mentioning. So, annual license required. No short-term rental may be operated without a valid short-term rental license issued pursuant to this ordinance. Licenses will be valid from January 1 to December 31st. 3.2, all existing approved short-term rental operations as of the enactment date of this ordinance shall be licensed by the county within 5 months from the effective date of this ordinance and are subject to all requirements of this ordinance. The enactment date of the ordinance is June 11th and the effective date is June 22nd. But it's all existing approved short-term rentals. So anything that already had a CUP would have been ones that were approved. Those that were not approved previously would not fall under that section. So then all new short-term rental operations as of the enactment date of this ordinance shall obtain a license from the county prior to commencing operations. Applications will be submitted to Koochiching County. So they need to obtain the license prior to operations. So that's what the ordinance says.
And we discussed that too on how we could get those conditional use permits into interim use permits, and that's not a discussion for today, but we don't know if that's possible, and it is what it is now, and I think we got something a little more concrete to go forward with now with the CUPs. And to go back, and I think the person that you're talking about in Birchdale has a CUP, went through the process a couple of years ago prior to any of this starting, so she would not be have to at least worry about that and the whatever increased fees there might be. So I know that was done a couple of years ago, and I know some of the other ones, the 7 that Matt had mentioned, I think there was maybe just a couple on the books, and then we went through that, maybe we added 5 or 6 in the last probably 4 or 5 years.
So that existing CUP or any of those existing CUPs, other than the last 2 that were required to be compliant with this new ordinance, prior to that, so the one that you were referring to, they're a permitted use. They're already approved for short-term rental. All they have to do is obtain the license, so the annual license.
So, I mean, we have
and our current fees for short-term rental licensing, the initial license, in this case would be $500. So that's the license fee that the ops are subject to. Right. The ops have already paid the interim use permit application fee of $300, so that's been paid. So the only thing that's left to pay is the the license fee, if approved.
And the license fee, and getting back to the planning and zoning, it was kind of brushed over there. It was mentioned at the planning and zoning that there is an after the fact fee for non-compliance. The chair was adamant that is blatant non-compliance to our ordinance, and I think we had, after some discussion, I think we appreciate that people are applying and that are making the effort to do that. But at the same time, I think that there was other folks that actually did stop renting or rented for a different purpose, and with that was within the regulation of the ordinance. However, we did not set any, and that was not part of the motion for any of these here. We were happy to go through the first four with the new ordinance, and we appreciated the people's patience on doing all that, so we really didn't set anything there. And now is of the agreement there that we move forward with it and then grant them that IUP, because there was some discussion of not even granting the IUP if there's non-compliance, because that states that in the ordinance as well. If you do not have this here, you do not get granted this at all, and that is the way it is. So we kind of moved past that at that meeting there. However, with the fee, there is an opportunity here, an after the fact permit required fee multiplied times 3. Now, I've had discussion with Matt on this IUP. The IUP is already bought and paid for, let's say, to start the discussion. So that probably isn't any part of any types of fee. But if you have knowledge of non-compliance, which we do, then we do have that opportunity to enforce that non-compliance. And I really do think that if we don't enforce non-compliance, then we might as well throw this out the window. I mean, that's just the way I look at it. I really think that there should be some type of initial, I understand what the fees are, but I also understand when they're, and I don't know what these rentals are, but, this is a recoup cost, and this is part of the cost of doing business too. And I would suggest if there were a motion, it would be contingent upon some type of increased fee for the short-term license, the initial short-term license. Now, this is an annual license that's renewable annually upon meeting all the conditions, and it'll just strictly go through Matt's office. It won't be here. The initial permit here, I would suggest that we do and follow the ordinance and the suggestion of the ordinance to be 3 times the fee for non-compliance for the ops. Which instead of being 500 will be 1,500. I obviously have to accept the motion, so I would accept the motion for something of that. That's just a suggestion, kind of moving forward. If we want to have compliance, I think we need to set the tone of that compliance. If we don't, then people are just going to do it with no repercussions at all, then you might as well erase that bottom line. And if that's what we want to do, we can do that too. But if we're going to follow, we need to follow it. I really do appreciate them, and it's not even the money, it's the idea of having the safety of these people. If someone is in non-compliance and they don't follow any of the rules, and something happens to those said people, that puts a bad mark on us here too. That does follow back, and that trickles back to us eventually, ultimately. It comes back to this county and has a bad mark. So, I mean, we want to be positive for all this stuff if we can too. So.
Chair, how many of these were running that were approved?
I'm sorry?
How many of these were running without the license because we really didn't have an ordinance, so to speak, unless it was a CUP?
So I
These
don't-
4.
Of these 4?
Yeah.
I'm not aware of
With
what. I don't know if ops. I think ops mentioned they had been renting prior to the adoption of the ordinance, but they could clarify that. Karen, could you clarify? Have you been renting prior to the ordinance as well?
Yeah, when the ordinance went into effect.
So when the ordinance went into effect is when you started renting?
Yep, and applied for it immediately, and then complied with all of the obligations in there, about the insurance and everything like that.
So then Article 3.2 really doesn't apply. Because there wasn't existing.
That's correct. When existing is only if they're approved for a CUP prior to that. So even if they were renting prior to the ordinance, but if they didn't have a CUP or any approval from the county, they were renting illegally, so they're really not compliant. So they wouldn't be existing. Existing only means those that were approved previously.
So they didn't have one.
That's correct.
And how many of these other ones didn't have one that we know of, or we don't really know?
We did one other site inspection where we found short-term rental activity.
In these 4?
Yes, one
of
other
these
one,
ones.
one other one that was where we actually showed up and it was someone from New York that was at the place and told us that they were a short-term renter.
Oh, so there's verification that it was.
Yeah, we were right there. It
We
was
were right there,
like
okay.
clear cut.
Well, we're probably gonna have to have a little teeth in the game, I guess, or they're just gonna.
Keep in mind, there's 18 to 20 letters that were sent out here just recently, here within the last 2 or 3 weeks that went out for this very same thing.
For more coming in.
Well, for having potentially renting without a permit or a light.
Oh,
for
without
an IUP.
Oh, okay, well then,
Or one or the other, or both.
Yep.
So that's 18 responses. I don't know if you've had any responses from anyone or whatever.
I've had some conversation with various, a few of them already.
Right.
I don't know where they get their information, but they get information from wherever they get it, and obviously it's not from our office, because they don't even know that prior to the short-term rental that there was ordinance requirements that they had to meet. So, and so in those circumstances, if I tell them to cease their short-term rental operations at that point, and then they stop. So I've had conversations with various people and had said, stop your short-term rental until you get the proper permits in place. And if they stop, to me that, they've listened to that request to stop short-term renting, okay? It's when if I've told them to stop because you're out of compliance to the ordinance and they continue to do it, that to me is a different level of non-compliance.
They'll probably stop in November when it's.
Yeah, right, they'll stop when there's no more renters,
Well,
right?
yeah, but then they go through the process and then
That's
they might
right.
not get
Yeah,
hit as
yeah.
hard.
But
anyway.
it's a challenge with that. So you have to kind of, you have a decision to make, how you handle it. And, so I don't know the answer to it. Other than to say you have a short-term rental or an interim use permit for short-term rental in front of you, that decision has to be made today as to whether or not you approve, deny, that application, and then how you want to apply fees is up to you. Currently, the fee for short-term rental license is $500, and the interim use permit application, which was already paid in all 4 of these, was $300.
This is a consideration here that's probably an extra consideration because technically we don't even have to do that. Because technically it's non-compliance. And it can be up to Matt's office, just say it's 3 times, period. So this is kind of we're kicking this off and we want to kick it off on the right foot. We don't want to throw Matt under the bus and say, hey, the ordinance says 3 times a fee. That's well within my realm of responsibilities to charge that, which you could. Now, do I think that's reasonable? Well, maybe not. If you blatantly disregard the ordinance, knowing that you should have followed it, that's a little bit different. What does that say to the people that don't or that do follow that? I mean, just because you can bend it, tweak it, and say this and say that, well, that's great. A friend of a friend, and I heard that at the meeting, and that's all great. But a lot of people put a lot of work into this too. At the direction of this board. So if we're going to disregard that work, well, then we might as well go back to the drawing board, honestly. I'm not trying to be, upset or anything, but it's just, there's a lot of effort put into here, and I think we owe it to the citizens as well. We owe it to the residents of the county to follow this, We set an example by following some of these here and being reasonable, and I think being reasonable is some type of enforcement. Unfortunately, I don't think you can just do whatever. I'm all for business too. In the right way. So, but if, so we don't have to revisit it again. Maybe it's a once and done type of deal. Maybe we get some deals. And what's the next step after this, Matt? If there's non-compliance, is it civil action after that?
We would work with the property owners to become compliant. I don't imagine any of these applicants, they're intending to be compliant. So I believe the ops and every other applicant that's in front of you today fully intends to be compliant with the ordinance and moving forward doing things that are required. They've shown that in their application process. They've shown that in all the information they've prepared. They've hired surveyors or went through the process to mark their property lines. They've gone through quite a bit of process to try to make sure they're compliant. They've had water testing and various other things that are necessary for the Minnesota Department of Health license. So I mean, they've gone through quite a bit to be compliant. So I do believe they will continue to do that. And so there's no doubt in my mind. I don't think, I believe we'll have positive results from these applicants. Could there be a complaint? Sure, of a renter or something like that happen, then we'll deal with that. And I'm sure they will react in the right way to try to resolve those issues as well. So.
Well, I'll make the motion to approve the apps.
I'll second it.
Is that the ×3?
I guess they spent a lot of time and work, and yes, ×3.
Well, it can be what you wish it to be too. It doesn't have to be that ×3. We talked about different scenarios, but there's.
Well,
they
are trying to be compliant with the things.
Maybe you do the ×2.
I think ×2, being that this is just rolling out, I don't think they should get.
You fine with that?
It's up to you guys to.
Yeah, but I don't want to throw you under the bus either, because you spent a lot of time and a lot of hard work, and I don't want to really throw any, but going forward, they have, there's a reason that you spent all this time on this, and knowing that going forward, there should be no reason someone's out there running without a license.
And if you tell them to stop and they don't stop, ×3 is very well in.
Planning and zoning. What was the opinion there? ×3?
The opinion from a person or one person was to not even allow it, to just deny the application because they were non-compliance. I think that the board there, kind of thought that was a little bit overreaching. I agree with them. I think that's overreaching. We did not discuss the fees because the fees are set here. This is where the fees would get decided. We didn't have anything in a motion from any of them over there. They just approved to move forward with the IUP. The only thing we really can technically fee is the license, the initial license. So like I said before, the IUP is gone and done. Maybe there's a process that we can look into there. Maybe we don't worry about it. Maybe it's too much fiddling around. And if you have verification from the Department of Revenue that you're actually renting this, and we can have an easy check with them, which I think we can, and we can find out that this has actually been rented prior to this licensure, well then you're right. Then I think they should be charged because you know better. If you know better, you should do better. So ignorance is it's here in writing and it's over here right now. So, but that's not at issue, I think. And with some discussion with Matt here, they have already paid the fee for the initial short-term rental license fee. To go back and to tag it onto that probably wouldn't be the best thing to do right now. Would be if there's anything, it should be more on the short-term license because that hasn't been actually given yet till after today. So, and that it could be the way it is moving forward or whoever thinks too. It could be whatever we think is best to move forward. So, getting too far in the weeds, I agree with Commissioner Erickson. Making more roadblocks is not going to be the answer, but I think having something that's pretty cut and dry would be the way to go. So. But we'll get there. This is just initial too. We're just kicking this off. So.
Well, I want to be clear. I welcome these people in because I think the short-term rental, has the possibility of bringing people in that will want to stay here or invest here. But it needs to be fair. It doesn't. I don't want it to be a roadblock in some parts of the county and not in others. But back to the fee. I mean, if you go 2, does that apply? Precedent again. I'm not.
Well, I think these are the first 4, so I think they're, in my mind, they're going to get a little leniency.
Yeah, but after today,
I think. Well, I think we just rolled this out, and I think we kind of went through it with planning and zoning, which is they were very succinct, and everything that they did there was very succinct. I was very, very happy with the process and how it was handled, and Matt Whitney and the chair, and really kept everything in order. And we moved forward. We had a 1 hour, and we actually got stuff done in 1 hour, which was, it's hard to believe, but it really moved forward quickly. And yeah, we met up quite a few times, but it's done. And it's pretty good. And can there be tweaks? Absolutely. We can tweak this however we see fit, and we're going to have that opportunity annually, actually, every year. So, and we can have the planning and zoning review something that you hear it's not quite right. Send it to Matt. It'll get kicked to planning and zoning. Take a look at it, and we can fix it. Because I too don't want to deter people, but at the same time, I think we do want to follow the rules here, because our name is on the bottom line of this too, and the county's name is attached to these things, and we want to do what's best for everyone here as well. So, but we do have a motion for Commissioner Hell as initially at 3. Are you still at that 3 or 2 or 1 or none?
Maybe 2. I'll go with 2. Going forward after this, then I would be all for 3.
Yep. I'd still second it at 2.
At 2. Motion by Commissioner Hill to approve interim use permit 2024-1002 short-term rental property for Karen and Craig Opp at the short-term rental license fee of ×2. We'll put that in the motion as well.
For non-compliance.
We'll just put that in the motion for the double fee.
And the initial interim use.
Initial entry, yes.
Or initial short-term rental license.
Any discussion? Further discussion? All right, hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you all.
So the next item is an interim use permit for David and Julie Cray. I struggle with his name, so I apologize. So the Planning and Zoning Commission again met on August 8th, and they held the public hearing on their interim use permit application in order to convert their lake home into a short-term rental. The parcel is located at 2084 Town Road 492, which is located about 11 miles east of International Falls on Rainy Lake. It's kind of in the same neighborhood as Ops. Approval of an interim use permit will allow the applicant to apply for the short-term rental license as required in the short-term rental ordinance. Short-term rental as per section 5.2B of the Koochiching County short-term rental ordinance, an interim use permit is required for this shoreland riparian parcel. If approved as per 5.16A1, the initial interim use permit will be valid for 5 years. Subsequent renewal and continuation of the interim use permit is conditional upon the compliance level of the owner with the conditions of approval, which shall include the continued compliance with all short-term rental ordinance and licensing requirements. Subsequent renewal term will be determined by the county board. Change in ownership or loss or forfeiture of the license under the county short-term rental ordinance will immediately terminate any interim use permit issued for this use. At the public hearing, the Planning and Zoning Commission heard information provided by the applicant and received public comment, and they made the recommendation to approve the interim use permit application as submitted. And Dave, if you would like to come up and just kind of talk about your short-term rental with the board, you certainly could do that. Let you have the chair. Okay.
Howdy, nice to meet you all. Yeah, very similar to the ops. We've got a parcel that we've been coming up here for, I've been coming up for 12, 15 years and hoping that we could find a property. We finally did. And part of that just being affordable in the interim until we can get the kids through college and start to come up here more is hoping to be able to make a little revenue on the property. So yeah, we are hoping to be able to rent it part-time when we're not using it during the summer. And yeah, that's about it, I think.
And you
went through, you contacted the Minnesota Department of
Yeah,
Health.
been in touch with Jared Morrell, we got that taken care of, and then, yeah, we've been in the process of going through this, and I did receive a phone call from Matt that someone had said, hey, this guy's listing his property for rent online, and he informed me at that time that, you know, we obviously couldn't rent it until we had a license in place, and I did take down our rental, like, marketing at that point for this. So, but we also did have a couple of people who had already booked for the summer, and I had only booked till the end of July, thinking it would be done by then, which obviously it's not, because here we are. So we did have a couple of people who stayed in the property this summer. I tried to cancel one of them, and it was a woman named Chantel Roberts, who used to live here locally, and she was like, well, she gave me a very deep plea to not cancel her family vacation for the summer back home, so I did choose to let her stay. So I'm also, you know, I've had a few people stay in the property this summer, but we didn't do anything in June. Our goal was to, you know, be in compliance here too.
So was there rental outside of the ordinance then, or outside of the IUP and the?
Yeah, because that one obviously have it, right?
Okay.
So yeah, I had Chantel and then one other person that stayed. That was a friend of our neighbor.
You were notified from Matt's office, deceased and all that stuff?
Yeah, he said we obviously couldn't rent it legally until, and so like I said, I did take down all of our like Airbnb and Vrbo listings. I took them all down, and it was a bummer to lose all that revenue for the beginning of the summer, but I was trying to do the right thing there. Just couldn't quite bear to cancel these people's vacations. So.
Right. And when were you notified to not rent?
I honestly don't remember when you called me.
Yeah, it was probably in May,
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
I think it was.
Yeah. And he did take down his advertising and, you know, immediately stopped that activity. But, you know, at the planning commission, there was note that he was not advertising on the short-term rental sites. But, like Dave said, he had a couple people that he had already committed to previously, and had a hard time being able to say no to them, apparently. So,
And I understand there might be ramifications of that. And
I think you're in the same boat as the office, so.
All right, wishes of the board.
I move to approve with twice the fee.
I would second that.
Motion by Commissioner McIntyre, seconded by Commissioner Roach. To approve interim use permit 2024-1005 short-term rental property with 2 times initial short-term license.
Do appreciate you taking that down off the line too. That was.
Yeah. Well, we're trying to get this kicked off, so we
understand.
really do want it, and we understand. We appreciate you holding off there
Yep.
and doing that too. And I think that's.
you have to hold the line, otherwise people will take every inch they can get. I understand.
Well, no, and we appreciate you applying too. We really do. That's kind of the whole issue here, is just making sure that people are safe. It isn't a moneymaker for us.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work for Matt and for Whitney, and it's really is just to kind of keep track of what's going on and where too. So
Yeah, and I think I said at the meeting, but it was fun to even see some of the complaints that came up in the previous meeting, like you guys had already worked through and addressed really thoughtfully. So I went through a lot of the process, and I think you guys did a great job.
yeah, there was a lot of considerations there. So thank you again. So any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Thank you.
All right, have a good day.
Thank you.
So Whitney, can you just pull up the 750-foot circles for them to see just quickly? I'll just show you the circles on these two that you just approved, just so you have a general view of that. Just 1 minute.
I know exactly where they are.
Yeah, yeah. So those two blue circles in the upper portion are the two that were just dealt with here. These were the two applications, so that's what their circles look like. And so there's a density restriction in that Gold Shores area that within each circle there can only be 2 short-term rentals. So now there's 1 in each one of those circles that's been approved. So just to give you a sense. And the next 2 that we're dealing with are the 2 blue circles that are on the bottom portion of the screen. So just to give you a sense of the next 2 that are coming. So Whitney, if we can switch back to Fanes. Do you guys have any questions related to that? Are you good? Okay. Just to give you a sense.
You're going to have 1 in each circle, but you have 2 overlap there, or what?
So when there's an overlap, so the next application, well, so let's just take the 2 that were just approved. So there was a bit of an overlap on those 2,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
So if we get 1 more that falls within the overlap of those 2 circles, now if that's approved, now there's 2 short-term rentals in each circle. And therefore, there can be no further short-term rentals within there. Every other applicant within those circles would be denied an application. They could be put on a waiting list. And then if there's a transfer of the 3, in this case, because they were overlapped, then they would cease, and so the first person on the waiting list would get the opportunity to apply. So, just to give you that sense.
So potentially you could have another one in either one of those.
That's
or
correct.
both of those areas.
That's correct.
existing. Okay.
Yeah, and then a new circle would be drawn on theirs that would extend maybe somewhere else, you know, and so just continues, these circles keep it, you know, building on each other, right? So, and depending on where they're located affects, you know, where others can be. All right, the Fanes, are you online?
I've seen them on there.
I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank you.
I'm here.
Thank you. So, the Planning and Zoning Commission met on August 8th, 2024, and this is to hold a public hearing on the interim use permit application submitted by Ryan Fain in order to convert their home into a short-term rental. If you look at the screen there, it shows the parcel in question, and it's a non-riparian shoreland property, so it's not on the water, although they have a common interest water access lot that they have a dock that they can use, so they do have access to the water. The parcel is located at 2236 Town Road 342, which again is located approximately 11 miles east of International Falls near Voyageurs National Park. Approval of an interim use permit will allow the applicant to apply for a short-term rental license. As per section 5.2B of the Koochiching County Short-Term Rental Ordinance, an interim use permit is required for this shoreland non-riparian parcel. If approved, per section 5.16A1 of the Koochiching County zoning ordinance, the initial interim use permit will be valid for 5 years. The subsequent renewal and continuation of the interim use permit is conditional upon the compliance level of the owner with the conditions of approval, which shall include the continued compliance with all short-term rental ordinance and licensing requirements. Subsequent renewal term will be determined by the county board at a later date. Change in ownership or loss of or forfeiture of a license under the county short-term rental ordinance will immediately terminate any interim use permit issued for this use. At the public hearing, the Planning and Zoning Commission heard information provided by the applicant as well as received public comment, and the Planning and Zoning Commission made the recommendation to approve the interim use permit application as submitted. And then I'll let the Fains to go ahead and just describe their short-term rental and the process that they've done to meet the requirements.
Yeah, so we recently bought a chunk of land and we built this cabin 2 years ago. I built it myself with help of a couple other guys. We're looking to use this as a family cabin for ourselves, family and friends, as well as a short-term rental to help supplement some income so we can afford it. So we've been coming to the area, very similar to the last couple applicants. We've been there about 15 years, coming every summer, 15 years. So eventually this may be our retirement home, just not sure how that'll work, but been dealing with Koochiching County and Matt and Whitney trying to get this all turned in, and it's been a long process, and we're just happy to be here and hopefully get approved today. So.
And this was a property that where when we did the site inspection, there was a short-term renter using the property. So, and Ryan, I had asked you to stop short-term renting.
Correct. You sent me a little last year. Pat Flannery was in the application process and he got denied, and shortly after, I believe it was September last year, I got a cease and desist letter. At the time, we had blocked our VRBO calendar all the way through September this year, so we did have friends and family and a few renters there this summer. So.
And the one thing on these applicants is they have the common interest lakeshore lot where they have a dock. They share that with other owners. And they did present at the meeting, at our public hearing, that they will extend their insurance to cover the liability related to the dock and the common access lot. So they did address that as a concern. It was a concern brought up and a concern addressed, it seemed. So.
Right. Thank you, Matt. Wishes of the board.
They are making everything compliant. They did order. He did tell us we might as well stay consistent and 2 times the fine.
Would that be a motion, Commissioner?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach. Thank you, Commissioner Hell. And thank you, Ryan, too, for applying and hanging in there with us, Matt. So appreciate you going through the process.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Thanks for all your guys' hard work, and look forward to being a good standing renter and being able to enjoy your beautiful community and county with rental renters. Thank you.
Any further discussion? So up for consideration is to approve the interim use permit 2024-1004 for Ryan and Stuart and Ken, and we have a first and a second. If there's no other discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you.
Sorry to wait so long.
So the final item is related to the Patrick and Carrie Flannery application for an interim use permit. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on the interim use permit application Thursday, August 8th, again, in order for them to convert their home into a short-term rental. The parcel is located at 2291 Town Road 342, so just a couple properties away from this last application. so right in the same neighborhood. And you can see it on the screen there. It's located approximately 11 miles east of International Falls and near Wagers National Park. Again, the approval of an interim use permit will allow the applicant to apply for the short-term rental license. As per section 5.2B of the short-term rental ordinance, an interim use permit is required for the non-riparian shoreline parcel. If approved, the initial interim use permit will be valid for 5 years. Subsequent renewal and continuation of the interim use permit is conditional upon compliance level of the owner with the conditions of approval, including all short-term rental ordinance and licensing requirements. And the subsequent renewal will be at a later date if the board wishes to renew it at that time. Change in ownership or loss of or forfeiture of a license under the county short-term rental ordinance will immediately terminate any interim use permit issued for the use. At the public hearing, the Planning and Zoning Commission heard information provided by both the applicant and public comment, and the Planning and Zoning Commission made the recommendation to approve the interim use permit application as submitted. And I don't believe the Flannerys, I believe that the Flannerys in 2023 received they got denied an application for a conditional use permit at the time. And they were told to cease and desist all short-term rental activity, and I believe they've been compliant with that. And you can answer that.
Yeah, we did. So after the denial, we took it down, we stopped renting. We did advertise and rent for 30 days or more, which is not, outside that ordinance. And so that's helped us kind of offset some of the cost in the meantime, but certainly interested in this approval and being able to operate as a short-term rental going forward.
And maybe just talk about your short-term rental, the process you've gone through, what you've done to meet the requirements.
Yeah, so we, I started this probably, over a year ago with you as far as the short-term rental process with a conditional use permit. So we went through that piece of it. Ultimately got denied. And helped out or worked with the Planning and Zoning Commission on the ordinance, which helped address a lot of the concerns from the neighbors that were brought up in those meetings last summer. And so, we've been a part of this discussion over the course of last year. We've done the survey for our property, so so it's clear where our property lines are and delineated. We worked with the Minnesota Department of Health on their application process, which required a variance because we have a cistern, we don't have a well. So there's some additional requirements for that piece of it. The insurance requirements, we worked with our insurance provider to provide the certificate of insurance. We have a property manager set up to help out. We're still going to be the contact people, but we have a property manager that can help out if we're not available or just general maintenance on the property. I think that's the most of it there.
And for mention too, you were very active with our meetings and stuff and kind of helped shape this. I know you were at almost all of our meetings for planning and zoning. Yourself and Dave obviously too were both involved, but yourself there, I don't know that you missed a meeting, yourself or Carrie. So I appreciate your help and kind of helping mitigate and navigate that too. And I know the neighbors appreciate it. It was a hard sell for them to a certain extent, some of the fears and things that they have. But I think a lot of that stuff has been addressed. So and I appreciate you applying as well too, and kind of hanging in there and stuff. And appreciate you following the ordinance as it is. And I think that's always good to try to do that. I think that's always in the best interest of what we're trying to do here too. And again, it's for the safety of the people staying with you, at your place there, and we just want the best outcome for them too. So
it was interesting, Mr. Chair, if I may. When the Minnesota Department of Health was doing the water testing, they require people with the variance was for a cistern, but they also require a variance for lake systems as well. So if someone has a lake water system, they have to have a variance for that use. And then there's testing requirements for, through the Minnesota Department of Health. So I think you get tested on your cistern every 3 months.
Yeah, quarterly.
Yeah, quarterly, and then they have to sanitize the cistern, how many hours? Annually. And so Minnesota Department of Health has a whole list of things that they require for short-term rentals. So when we talk about water systems, it's a big process.
How about on wells?
So the wells, they just have to meet the testing requirements, but there's not a variance. I don't know if there's a variance for an undocumented well, so in the case that we were talking about earlier, but I don't believe so, because I set up a call with the Minnesota Department of Health and that well owner related to the well, and they were going to communicate back and forth further and try to see if there was any opportunity. But I did try to help by getting that communication going between the property owner and Minnesota Department of Health. But in this case, they've gone through all the process and it's been very proactive in trying to take care of what needs to be taken care of. So.
All right, so wishes of the board.
I'll make the motion for Flannery's.
Thank you guys very much for doing everything that you've done, all the meetings and everything else that you've been at to help shape it up.
Thanks, Tom.
Very much appreciated.
Motion by Commissioner Hill as to approve interim use permit 2024-1001 for Patrick and Gary Flannery. Is that it? No.
Just since they stopped.
They followed all the rules. They
Yeah,
should.
so
there should be no-
just their regular, whatever they gotta do.
Regular
And I would second that.
Is that the regular fee? Seconded by Commissioner Vogt. Any discussion?
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for going through the process. Hearing no discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Then motion carries.
You have a good day.
Yeah, thank
Take
you.
it easy.
Thanks for hanging out. It's a marathon today, so. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, we have a roundtable on committees. Anybody have any updates on any committees they'd like to share? How much time we got, right? I got one update for y'all for the Voyageur National Park Clean Water Joint Powers Board. I testified yesterday as part of the budget process for the Clean Water Committee, which is a division of the Voyageur National Park Clean Water Initiative, which was at the MPCA headquarters in St. Paul. So I was there yesterday morning, along with other people, testifying for funding for a biennium funding for the VNP Joint Powers Board area, which includes Rainy Lake, Crane Lake, Capitogama, and Ash River. So, and that's a funding request that kind of gets kind of a startup funding for some of these projects and stuff in the clients. And obviously, the projects up the lake many projects have been completed up here. Crane Lake has a project that was just completed here last year and put into service, and now Ash River is kind of next on the plate for getting a centralized system. So that's kind of the goal, is to continue the funding, the perpetual funding until the project is done at least. And you get all this, you get a lot of the work lined up, and then you got to have funding to do it because it's unaffordable without the funding. So funding is very important. So anyway, that's the only update I have from one of my committees.
I was yesterday at the ATV Joint Powers Board, and they brought up the Frozen Water Act that's up here in Voyageurs National Park area. And that is going, we sent out certified letters to Voyageurs National Park from the ATV Joint Powers Board. And it sounds like they are getting going on that through the DNR and through ATV Joint Powers Board.
In opposition?
What's that?
Letters in support or opposition?
We're going to start fighting with the park to see if we can take and get the Frozen Water Act stopped.
Yeah, it's an implementation it's going through a public process. The public process, is it still open even? I'm not sure. We'll see.
I thought they were having a few more meetings.
Yeah, they very well. I can't speak for them, so I shouldn't. But yeah, that was part of the frozen water use initiative. So, but good update.
And Tommy Doherty he sent out letters. It's more survival for Lake Captogama than Rainy Lake because of the whole thing in Captogama is in the park basically, where Rainy Lake only part of it is. So it's a big deal for a lot of people, business wise and everything else.
So with the frozen water thing, would ban snowmobiles or something, or ice fishing, or?
Well, they have. It's hard to explain. I don't want to explain it and bugger it up, but
the snowmobiles are grandfathered in for life.
Yeah, they're an allowed use
in the park.
Yeah.
They're trying to stop anything with four-wheelers, and the people that are putting tracks on four-wheelers to run around in the park, pulling fish houses out or whatever.
What are those other things called? Those big tired.
Yeah.
Well, them 2 or 4 really big tires.
That floating water, ice,
They're
whatever.
Expensive.
Yeah.
They're trying to get them so they can't run through the park service. There's just so much stuff they're trying to stop. Fish houses would only be able to be so many feet off a plowed road. Plowed roads would be up to the park service if they wanted to put them in or not. The limitations are what they're trying to do is way out in left field somewhere compared to what it used to be.
The DNR, back when the park was getting started in the 70s, the DNR never did give up the water rights for it.
It's always been a fight, I guess. Where does it stand? Do the water rights still belong to the state? Or?
Yes, as of right now, from what everything is understand, the water rights still belong to the state. But when it's frozen, they're trying to call it an extension of land. The Park Service is. So
I never understood that.
just something to spend more taxpayers' money, to what it's going to come down to. That was all informized by Bob Gross when he moved up here.
He's getting pulled by someone else further.
I'm sure he is, but the person that we had in before him, he understood the economics of Cooch County, St. Louis County, what that brings in for revenue for all of the businesses around. And I think they just sort of just let it slide until the new regime came in, and now they're going to push it. But I think this also happened in Alaska, and I believe Alaska won.
They won 1 out of 4 up there for that land water or ice use. I don't recall the case. It was one case. There have been several challenges.
Yep.
In other places, I guess too, and I just don't know the outcome to those. So they did win. They did have something there that was.
Yep.
I remember reading that.
Well, I was at a Joint Powers Big Fork River Water Board last night. Not nearly that controversial. I think there was only 3 of us voting members showed up. Itasca didn't. But they will take over the leadership of that first of the year, right?
Itasca County will first year take over the financial.
So I don't know what. I think they had one permit in Cooch and one in Itasca or something. So there really wasn't much to report, but I'm just.
Big Fork River Board though has the same concerns. Some of the members have the same concerns about further regulation. That's their concern.
Absolutely, but if the board might need some rejuvenation.
More members, yeah.
They asked where Mr. Roach was, and I don't know. No, I said he's on the road someplace, I think. But he must have been a member at one point.
I was. Until you got on board. And you took my spot.
They said they missed you, I'm sure.
I'd come back and help if you needed it.
I think it needs new blood. Might need some improvement, but I don't. Our contribution is minimal, other than my time, and $750, I think, was the contribution we still got. So, but it's, I don't think we want it to go away.
No.
Gives them a chance, so we're going through if I may, is that all right, Mr. Erickson?
What?
If I can add something.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
If, the Big Fork River Board was established when there was some additional regulation being pushed. And so they wanted to establish a citizens committee to have a voice, and share their thoughts when it came to managing areas within that watershed. So over the years, and it's been residents, a lot of residents being active. Well, the residents are getting older, and many of the new owners in the watershed are non-resident owners, and so they're losing some of that membership activity. But anyways, now we're going into a one watershed, one plan planning process for the Big Fork River, Little Fork River. We're in the middle of it on the Rainy Rapid River, or I'm sorry, Rainy Lake, Rainy River watershed. And the state has a lot of representation. There's a lot more representation from these other organizations at these meetings, and they have different opinions maybe sometimes than the local residents, and so that having that river board allows for another opportunity for them to be active in these planning. We're going to this one watershed, one plan, a planning process that will eventually have help determine what our plans are to maintain good high quality water, which also goes along with more regulation. And so having those citizens involved, at least they're the ones that are being impacted by it, and they can add their input and hopefully create reasonable solutions to maintain the good quality water, but not restrict us any further than needs to be. And so that's kind of the challenge with all of this. So, and it goes back to what Commissioner Erickson was talking about, with the Minnesota Department of Health, more regulations, and all of these other tentacles of other government extending into our world. And it's a real thing. We have it going on, but how do you mitigate it? I'm not sure. But being active, that's the key. So.
Yep, absolutely. Getting these things brought to the forefront and get them to the legislatures and the different committees that you're on, that I think that's really important. So giving that committee up is not a good idea, because then you lose that extra voice too.
I think it's vitally important that we get some, local representation back on the board. We don't necessarily want somebody on that's coming to the North Woods to save us, if you know what I'm getting at.
Nice. How about you?
I'm good.
You're good?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
You're good too? All right. All right. Well, thank you for those updates. We'll just take them as they come. So, next up is public comments. We have everybody in person or online for public comment.
I'm the only one?
Yep, going up.
Okay. Oh, my first public board meeting I've ever been to. My name is Lonnie Glover. I was born and raised in our town. I had a criminal case not long ago, a couple of years ago now, but it might not be that long ago for some of your guys' things. I don't know all your processes that you do, but what I had to talk about is very, very, very serious with our county, and it involves kids and the way they're interviewed in criminal cases. You would never know these things unless you've been through it, okay? You would never even know to look into these things unless you've been through it. And as a county board meeting, I can pretty much guarantee you probably never even dealt with any of this stuff. This is very hard for me to do because I love our county and I have a lot of pride in our county. You know, I played hockey and I was on all-star teams and I was always proud to be from International Falls. So this is very hard for me to do, but it needs to be done because kids are being hurt. And I don't know if it's intentional. I can't believe it's intentional, but through the process, they're being hurt in our county and our town. So I'm here to file a complaint on one of the social workers named Ariel Olson. It's not going to be formal today because I'm going to hand out some paperwork so you guys can read it, so I don't just blast you with a bunch of stuff you have no idea about, right? I would like to have a little bit of time today to prove a couple points, not long, but to show that I have merit, right? To show what I'm telling you is the truth. I need 30 days, probably today, to get the last transcript from my last court hearing so I can be word for word accurate on what I'm telling you is true. So I'm going to hand you this stuff so you guys can read it, and then in 30 days I'll come back. Hopefully I get the transcript so I can be dead on accurate on what I'm saying, right? So we need to ask what's going on in our county, right? What's going on? Well, they're prosecuting people without finding the truth, without even attempting to find the truth, is what I found out. My case, also, and this is public record so I can say it, there's an Ethan Firth that was in the same situation I was in, a different type of case. No investigation. They don't investigate. So you gotta ask yourself why, right? The prosecutor is the most powerful person in our county. He decides who is charged and what to charge them with. Right? And I met with Mr. Foss yesterday. I'm being told that my interpretation of this material is wrong. This is not coming from me. This is coming from lawyers. So this isn't me making this up. I would not ever be smart enough to make up this stuff. You know, it's not just me saying these things, and it sucks that I gotta come in here and do this, but you know, my kids have been traumatized so bad that they had to create 5 invisible people to make up for me being gone because they didn't investigate. I'm being told that my interpretations are wrong by Miss Anderson and Mr. Foss, or potentially perhaps wrong. And as far as you guys are involved, and why I'm coming here for this, you guys represent the people of the county. You guys represent them before the county. And I believe you guys should know what's going on. This is going to be tough for you guys because you guys deal with these people every day. It's not going to be easy for you guys, I guarantee you. You know, this is going to step on some toes, but it's either that or we let kids be destroyed in our community and have trouble growing up, and you know, and I know you guys don't want that. So it's going to be tough for you guys, right? This is going to be one of them things that's going to be tough. And I believe you guys are going to do the right thing, because I heard you say, Sir Mr. Erickson, that you got to be aggressive in defending the citizens, right? That's going to hurt the county a little bit on this matter, right? And Mr. Scholblum, you said here today that people should appreciate the rules and follow them, and if they don't follow them, then what are the rules for, right? And that's what I'm here to show you guys about what's going on, the rules. And if there's no consequences, if the county's allowed to do this, if there's no consequences to them, then they're going to continue to do it. And then what do the protocols mean? What do the rules mean? They don't mean anything, right? They have protocols, right, to do an investigation. And when the prosecuting attorney, the sheriff's department, and the social services don't follow them protocols, when all three of them don't follow them, you got to ask yourself why, right? That doesn't make sense, right? So why wouldn't they follow the rules and the protocols that are governed by the state? And those protocols are in here, and I'm gonna give you guys those here in a minute. The answer to that question is because it doesn't fit the narrative of the prosecutor. He's the most powerful man. He guides these people, and they've become compliant with what he wants to get prosecutions. My official complaint will spell all this out in detail. Okay. So at this time, I'd like to give you this stuff. I took a lot of time to do this for you guys. So here you go. I know there's 5 of you guys. I'll just briefly detail what this all is and why it's important. I'm not just winging this. I spent my time researching this when I talked to lawyers. Now keep in mind, this is going to protect kids in our county. Right? This isn't even about me. This is about kids. Right?
Can you please mute Margaret?
Yeah. And it was thrown on here earlier, and the color of, I didn't know the whole town was having. When I got home and looked at my phone.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so here's a sticky note with my name and number on it for everybody. If you want to call me, if you have questions about what I'm trying to do or say or anything like that. Mr. Schulman, I know some of you guys got my number already, but here you go. That's how serious this is, man. This is no joke. So the deal is the county, okay, let's, first material I gave you guys was the Child First Forensic Interview Training Program. That, if you go on the 3rd page, it says the forensic interview does not stand alone on the highlight. I have a highlighter if you guys want to use it or whatever. But. Is everybody there? Mm-hmm. Okay. A forensic interview is one component of an entire child abuse investigation. Accordingly, we believe a forensic interview should be conducted as part of a multidisciplinary response. Now, that multidisciplinary response includes the prosecutor, the sheriff's department, and social services in our county. They're all part of the same group of that, and I can show you my transcript where they all agree to that. And that includes not only forensic interviews, but also law enforcement officers, child protection workers, prosecutors, and medical health professionals. Child First, which is this protocol that our county uses, okay, to do investigations, places a strong emphasis on MTDs working collaboratively to obtain corroborating evidence, which includes routinely photographing the crime scene. That did not happen in my case. The interrogation of a suspect, that would have been me, but my lawyer said do not talk to anybody. So I didn't on his recommendation. I wanted to, but he said don't. The interview of a non-offending caretaker that never happened. The other household members, that never happened. The photographing of a crime scene, that never happened. The interviews with teachers, no. Neighbors, no. Other potential witnesses are critical. That word means something, right? Critical. It's not an option, it's critical. In determining what may have happened to a child, corroborating evidence also plays a significant role in whether or not a case gets accepted. Now, this is the most important thing of the whole thing, right? Why wouldn't you want to investigate everything to know the truth? Because it doesn't fit the narrative of the county attorney in the prosecuting case. Now, had they done all that, they would have found, it's called exculpatory evidence. That's evidence that negates a charge. So he's just not doing it. With the help of our sheriff's department and social services. Just under that, general practices for the protocol, a few lines down, it says, it is our belief that everything a forensic interviewer does must have a purpose and must be legally defensible. That's the most disturbing thing I've ever read in these things, because that's all they try to do is make it defensible. They have no wish to find the truth at all. Okay? It's not even in their realm of trying to do. After that, I gave you guys the whole thing, so I'm not trying to just, pick out what I want. It's everything in here. So like, on page 5, I know maybe yours aren't numbered, but it says on 60 on the bottom. It's actually page 60 on the bottom left there. Under interviewing special populations and extended assessments or multiple interviews. You guys all there? Just under the first sentence there, it says a policy that limits the investigation or fact-finding process to a single interview is not recommended. There was only one interview in my case, and it's not recommended that they do that, but that's what they did. The number of interviews should be governed by the number necessary to elicit complete and accurate information from a child. They did not do that. So moving on from that page to the second to last page, page 62 on yours, on the bottom left. It says, we believe that every jurisdiction has professionals capable of teaching the complexities of properly conducting forensic interview as one part of an MTD investigation. Indeed, we believe that local professionals can teach the course more effectively because they are better equipped to take into account differences of state laws and nuances of local judges. And they have a deeper understanding of local cultures and communities. 20 years of ongoing teaching of the course in states throughout the United States, as well as the nations of Colombia and Japan, indicate our trust in frontline professionals is well placed. They're supposed to teach themselves this stuff, and it's supposed to have something called peer reviews. Okay, we're going to talk about that a little bit today, and that's going to be the point that I want to make. So now we move on to the Mitchell-Hamlin part of it. I'm not going to go over the prosecutorial misconduct thing. That speaks for itself. That just gives you guys an idea of what happens with lawyer or prosecuting attorneys. You guys can read that whenever you want. But that's kind of what people are up against. So the forensic interviewer at trial, right? That would have been Ariel Olson, right? I have the transcript here of that trial of her testimony. Just so you know, she was under oath. So that means something, I guess. I asked her, can you describe what a peer review is for the jury? And her answer is, we've discussed this previously, Lonnie, and the agency does not complete peer reviews. They don't do them at all. This is something that's done by the defense. So, in order for that to happen, a child forensic interview is almost impossible to get by anybody, even me. I wasn't even allowed to get a copy of it. I had to come down here and watch it. So in order for me to do a peer review, you can't do that. And even you guys as a county board, you probably would not have access to something like that to do a peer review of that video. You're not allowed. Nobody is allowed to have that. So for her to say that is impossible, okay? And then she said they don't do peer reviews here. Now, this is not the main point of my whole thing. This is just to show I have merit, and I don't want to waste all your time today. So she says they don't do peer reviews. Okay. Now, a peer review is a review by themselves, and this is kind of what it would look like. And I didn't make copies of this. This was in the back of my pamphlet, so I can hand this out to you. But basically, a peer review is after they have a child interview, they all get together and be like, hey, what can we do to get better? How do we get better? What mistakes did we make? You know, what did we learn from this, and how can we get better? Well, there's a whole checklist of things they should be doing, and they're not doing them. She didn't even know what it was. You know, Mr. Foss doesn't even know what this is. I met with him yesterday. He really doesn't understand what this stuff is. The reason they don't do this stuff is because it doesn't fit the narrative of what the county prosecutor wants to get evidence against somebody to prosecute them. If you have an interview with a child and he says, no, none of that happened, I didn't see anything, that would have to be in a report somewhere. So what's he doing? He's just not doing that. He's just not investigating with the help of the deputy sheriffs. Right? Does that make any sense to anybody why they would not investigate everything? Now my case is under appeal and it looks like it's coming back, but why would you not interview everybody in the house if something happened like that? Right? Would you? Would you guys interview everybody in the house to see what's going on? Most likely, right? They're not doing it on purpose to get prosecutions, to get my name on his wall. And if that's not disturbing enough for you guys to step in and say, hey, we got to change some stuff, we can make policies or whatever, make it mandatory to do these things so we get the truth, then what are we doing at all? If our kids are getting hurt, if my 7-year-old son has to create 5 invisible friends because he didn't investigate, then there's a problem, right? I was told I had to come here first. And then I'm going to file my official complaint, putting all this out, and then you guys can direct it to Mr. Foss, and then we can have another hearing here or whatever if you guys want to know. But this involves the kids in our county, so you guys should know what's going on.
Well, and you know, we will find out and look into this here. And I know I spoke to you and I told you kind of the same thing. I think we had a similar conversation on the phone, and you said you were going to introduce this information, file a complaint, which, you know, this absolutely, you know, welcome to do that, and we like to get better. I mean, we want to do better. So, and if there's somewhere, an area that we can help, I think that's what we'll definitely look into. And I do appreciate you taking the time to come in here and present this here. And does everybody have this information, Lonnie, that needs to, or are we okay?
Everything I gave out today is mainly what my.
Okay.
I can go over some of this stuff with you. Like, you got to damn near be a lawyer to read this stuff. I've spent a year just studying this stuff, and I barely.
That's why I say that I don't understand, and I don't know if everybody here understands it either. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not important, because I'm sure it is, but to understand it and dissect it, you know, we have, you know, we'll have to look at this and actually probably have it, you know, reworded so we understand it a little bit better what it means
Well,
and things like that.
This
so.
is from Mitchell Hamlin Law.
Yep.
It's an accredited school. I did everything that's accredited, right? Nothing is shady. Just some of the things in here that you might want to look into. On page, I'll give you a few examples on 862. Sorry about that. This is a lot to read, and it took me a year to understand what's going on, and that's when I said I gotta do something. Okay, under number 6, the commonality of the forensic interviewing protocols, and the little paragraph on the bottom there, like right here, it says that there is no single child forensic interview model or protocol that must be used in order to be forensically defensible. Again, there's that word, defensible, in this one too. Structured interview protocols that guide interviews to ask open questions in order to invite free recall narratives from children are solidly grounded in the research. That's not what happened in my case. They didn't ask open-ended questions. She led that little child in the interview, but and it was disgusting to see that. On page 864, to 865, on the last sentence on 864, it says this is a legitimate concern as noted earlier, accredited CACs, which is what these guys follow, are required to have their forensic interviews, are required. It doesn't say optional, it says required to participate in peer review. Ariel testified she didn't do that. She doesn't do it. A national survey published in 2020 found that, okay, so that's 2020, it's 4 years ago. 94% of frontline forensic interviewers were subjecting their work to ongoing peer review, averaging 5.2 hours per month. Now these guys are going to come in here and tell you their peer reviews are met weekly, but they don't go over the peer review protocols. They meet and talk about the case, but they don't go over what they're supposed to do. They're not doing it, right? On page 866, qualifications as an expert witness is what our forensic interviewer is considered as an expert witness. Part of the problem with that is Ariel Olson was the intake social worker. She switched her hat and became the forensic interviewer, which is almost impossible to do on a good day. A forensic interviewer is supposed to be non-biased, subjective, not really have a dog in the fight, if that makes sense. But we don't do that here. Okay, so then
So when you get your formal complaints, however that process is, we're going to see that?
yeah.
Okay. Because then we can correspond that complaint to this document here.
Well, I'd like to give you guys a while to digest it. There's a lot. It took me a long time, and it's hard. You guys are going to want to ask questions from other people, I'm sure, but...
Well, that's what we'll have. We'll have questions, I'm sure, and if we're writing these questions down, usually, you have the question down, and if it doesn't, you can always ask that question of someone that may know. I think that's kind of where I'm at, because to follow and to know everything, like you say, it's going to be hard for us to be able to do that right now.
Yeah, and I'll just skip around here. You guys don't have to follow, but on page 882, it talks about peer reviews, how important they are. The importance of peer reviews cannot be overstated. As Michael Lamb noted, interviewers continue to maintain or improve their skills only when they regularly review their own and other interviews closely, discussing their strategies, successes, and mistakes with other interviewers. That's what a peer review is. It's not what I was told yesterday by Miss Anderson and Mr. Foss, that they just meet and talk about cases. No, you have to go in depth on what you did wrong and how can we be better and do these checklists. That's how you become. But our county, what's going on here? What's really going on here is these poor social workers deal with child abuse every day. Right? That's what they do, and it's sad. And I don't know if they gave up on finding the truth. I don't know what it is. I really don't know. And that maybe you guys can bring in these social workers and have them questioned by you guys. You guys have the authority to do that. And be like, hey, are your eyes clouded about what's going on, about finding the truth to what's going on with these issues, right? You know? I mean, it's that sad, right? I would never want to be a social worker doing that. But at the same time, if I was, I would be expected to do my job like you guys are expected to do your job to the best of your ability, right? To do it right.
So what are you looking for us to do here?
Well, today, I would ask that at this time, you guys make a motion to stop all child interviews in our county and send them to Duluth to the first witness office there. They are professionals. I know that. They are professionals. They don't have the ability to be the intake social worker here. So what happens is, what's going on is the county attorney uses the same social workers, the same sheriff, and they become too close to do the job objectively. That's what's going on. That's what happens. They work together every day. You know, you can't do that and not form a relationship that at this point is questionable about what's going on with kids. Like, that's what they're doing. That's what happened. And maybe it's not even their fault. I'm not going to just blast them, but that's what's going on. So I would ask that you guys make a motion today. Any kid that needs a forensic interview, send them to Duluth until, at least give me 30 days. If I've proven anything here, you give me 30 days, and I'll have it all laid out better in a formal complaint.
Well, in order to move forward with changing something, I think we're going to have a formal complaint, so we know and we understand what we're supposed to be doing. I think that's the most important thing, is to make sure that we have the information that we need to see where there needs to be something, or identify where there needs to be something, if there is something. I mean, and I'm not saying to deter the formal thing, because I'd like to see that. That's how you do improve things, is, you know, through this process. And I think that's what we want to do. To make, unwillingly, I won't allow a motion for that. I think that the services are extremely important that we have here, and if the process can be, you know, looked into, or, you know, I mean, I'm going to trust the professionals to do that, and that's kind of where I'm at with that. So I mean, so far as a motion to, you know, move on with that, I think that's more of an internal departmental discussion on how things are done, and I trust that the process is. I know these people; they've been doing it a long time. I do know that, you know, that they know much more about this process than I do. So I'm gonna have to trust their knowledge and judgment of this more than making a motion here with us here on something that we don't maybe fully understand. And I'm not saying that we wouldn't look into it, but to do that without all the information we're not gonna be able to do that.
Right.
I don't feel comfortable.
Well, the only problem with that is the kids are getting hurt now.
Well, I you know, you may feel that way, but we need more information. When you talk about information, we really like to really look under every rock to get every bit of information that we can get to make a good decision too. We want to make the best decision for the county, you know, overall. And I think every one of us here, you know, could say that.
My thing would be on that is, it wouldn't hurt anybody if you sent kids to Duluth to get them properly interviewed.
Right.
That would not hurt anybody. It wouldn't even hurt social services office at all. I'm not asking that anybody be fired here today or reprimanded. That's up to you guys. And that'll be asked in my formal complaint. But to say, hey, we can send kids down there now, I don't think that would be a detriment to anything.
Well, I think the starting point is the formal complaint, and to see what that brings of that formal complaint, I think that is probably the best route right now. And I know if you've got any correspondence with Derek, that would be your best bet, I think, is to do that. And
Well, he heard everything here today.
Yeah.
It's up to him to do that.
Yeah, well, no, and if there's a formal way of doing this, we can do that, or we can take the information that we got today and we can go off of that. And if that's fine with you, we can forego the formal complaint process. We go back in the minutes and the notes and the video, and we can go from there too. And that's what we can do. If you want to consider that as your complaint, I think we could do that today.
No, I gotta get the transcript so I can.
Okay.
What happens is the social worker probably knew. No, it's probably not even her fault. She takes the complaint of some child being abused in any way, and then she becomes the independent forensic interviewer. Well, you can't do that. You see what I'm saying? You can't really be objective in something that you say, hey, this is happening to you. You already have a preconceived notion of guilt, is what happens. So you direct the interview in that way. Does that make sense?
No.
Right.
No, that doesn't make sense to me at all. I think it's our position to be objective, actually, and I think in a professional world especially, they're got to be objective.
So my appellate lawyer just spelled all that out too.
Yeah, and I think we here also are objective, and I think being objective is exactly what we're going to talk about. Exactly what I'm going to say next is to have a formal complaint. If you want to consider in a month to get the rest of your information together to file that formal complaint, that's fine. And I think we could then you could move forward with the formal complaint. We could revisit it if you like. We can make.
Well, I don't have the transcript. She has like 30 days to give me that, so I can't make it faster than that.
No, that's fine. And if you need that to make a formal complaint, then that's what I would, maybe that's the route that you go. Or today, if you have this information here, we can look into some of the information that you give us today.
Today was just the beginning, so you guys can ask questions and find out for yourselves what some of this stuff is.
Okay.
And then I'm not coming here, just pulling the rug out from under you. You guys have a chance to figure it out because it's not easy. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Well, just remember, you've had lots of time to think about it, and we've had just a short time.
Right.
So we need a little more time too to look at things.
So in my formal complaint, I'll spell it all out so you guys can go with it. I'll have the transcript ready. I'll have that and word for word accurate. So then you guys can be like, hey, what's going on here? And then you guys can ask whatever questions you want. And then we'll move forward from there. Because it ain't going to change today. I know that, but...
No, it's always a place to start. So we appreciate you coming in.
Something needs to change or it'll be a bad deal.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for
coming in. Appreciate you guys taking my time. I'm sorry I had to do this. I didn't want to be here. But...
It's okay. Thank you.
All right. Have a good day.
Thank you.
If you have any questions about anything or confused about what I did or said, give me a call.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you very much. Do you have any other public comment? Hearing no public comment, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Second. Thank you, Commissioner Oach. Thank you, Commissioner Hell. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we are adjourned.